The tale kicks off in a bustling town where the sun blasts the rooftops like it's setting the whole place on fire. The guy shouts at Ryuji, our poor protagonist, who's just standing there, totally stunned, trying to figure out why he got dragged into this out of nowhere and what the heck is going on. Guy says since the rest of the crew is off on a job, I was gonna give you all the day off. But he locks eyes with Ryuji and straight up declares that, starting today, he's officially kicked out of the party. Ryuji just freezes there, completely stunned. His brain can't even catch up with what his leader said, the same way it always happens in those Barnish stories, but this time here. Guy snaps and demands to know if he honestly has no clue how pointless he is, especially once things turn violent, but Ryuji just shrugs it off like, yeah, obviously, because his entire job is being a support-focused enchanter, plain and simple. He snaps at Guy and reminds him, you're the one who told me I'd be a burden on the front lines, so I should have just kept grinding magic stones to power up the team. He's basically calling out that, compared to folks like Minori or Suzu, the real monsters and the group's pillars, he's not even in the same league. It's a total disaster if Guy expects him to pull his weight the exact same way they all do. Guy slams his palm onto the table, screams that their ranks never climbing as long as he's stuck here, and then snaps that Ryuji is an idiot. He can't make it make sense. He snaps that the rest of the party already sits in second rank, while Ryuji's still the only one trapped down on third. So that's why the Berserkers will never get counted as a true top-tier party. Guy keeps pushing the point over and over. At this rate, they can kiss first rank goodbye, because they're stuck on third like it's their permanent home. Ryuji goes stone silent, staring at Guy like a light bulb finally explodes in his head. He can't stop replaying the old days, just him, Minori, and Suzu, back when it was only the three of them. That was the party the three of them first kicked off, and Guy was the one who bulldozed his way in and stole a spot in their group. Ryuji opens his mouth, then stops, yelling at Guy to wait a second as he finally clocks what's really going on. He leans in and demands, so you really joined just to kick Ryuji out from the start. He presses harder, demanding to know if that's really why Guy made Sean take his sisters out on a job this morning, just to shove them out of the way. Guy snaps at Ryuji to quit making things up, then glares at him and spits, trash like you is meant to get tossed. Ryuji freezes in the dark, finally realizing chasing a guy like that was a massive mistake. He blurts, I get it now. But he doesn't just fade away quietly. He storms right up to Guy and yells in his face that he's the one done with the whole group. Ryuji yanks out a scrap of paper and tells Guy, I'm taking every last magic stone I ever lent you, starting now. He raises the official document like proof, and you can tell he's been holding onto this moment all along to prove he's not messing around with that gun. A guy stands there totally baffled, firing back like, wait, what are you talking about? I thought every stone was shared party property. Ryuji cuts him off on the spot, jabs the paper, and spells it out. This contract clearly says the stones were a loan, not a gift. He presses the guy even harder, warning that if he doesn't give everything back, he'll gladly take him to court and settle it the hard way. Ryuji just stands there, dead calm, while Guy's sweat starts pouring as it finally hits him. He outright says Guy is missing the rare stones of sublimation, and that leaves Guy frozen in place, with nothing left to say. Ryuji calls out the sheer irony. This guy acts like he's above enchanters while he leans in and demands, so you're really just gonna coast on those magic stones from here on out. Guy flies into a rage, screams at him to shut up, and then snaps. Rage finally snaps. He hurls a stone straight into Ryuji's chest. Ryuji doesn't even blink. He just calls it a great throw and calmly confirms that. This wraps up every last bit he was owed before he finally says goodbye to Guy. Right as Ryuji bursts out the door, he orders Guy to go say hi to Minori and Suzu. He ditched the old party and headed to a quiet tavern where he could finally breathe and think. He sits there torn between choices, knowing he's got the cash, yet still staring at dead ends and brushes it off because he knows his sisters are strong enough to catch him later. Ryuji's already plotting how to start networking and make his move. Then a girl nearby rips his thoughts apart by yelling that she's officially done teaming up with her partner. And Lean looks completely shattered and he blurts out to Marie, why are you doing this, right now? Marie snaps back, saying she's just echoing everyone else. Lean is an alchemist who only churns out medicine, so the truth is, it's turning into a nightmare for Marie to keep finishing quests by herself. While Ryuji just sits there, nursing his drink, mulling over how getting kicked out of a party has somehow turned into the new trend, but he quickly realizes it's smarter to stay in his lane, so he keeps his mouth shut and just watches. Lane fights back with panic in her voice, insisting she's no fighter, so she pushes the plan instead, offensive potions and other gear. But Marie barrels in and snaps that the real issue is simple. she's got zero combat skill. She goes on a full-blown rant, screaming that splitting the gold she earned in battle with someone she considers completely useless is the worst deal ever. Slams the table and roars that the whole situation is beyond ridiculous. Marie wraps it up by bragging that she's already been scouted by Berserk, a top-tier group, so now Lean is nothing but roadblock in her way. Marie hurls out a frigid farewell as she storms off, leaving Lean frozen in place, completely stunned and unable to move, still staring after her. Lean just crumples into her seat at the empty table, while Marie storms straight for the exit like it's nothing. Pause, slam that like button, hit subscribe, and don't miss a second. For more hidden manga gems, now I dare you to hit that comment section. Drop a comment, I'm loving this, and I bet most of you feel the same. If you're not doing it, then say so. Alright, now let's keep going. While Lean slumps in the shadows, wallowing in self-pity, Ryuji strides up and asks if he can take a seat, making. Line stared up at him through tears, shaking as she demanded, "Who are you even?" Ryuji casually says her friends moved on, then slips the bombshell that he's the same guy who got kicked out of Berserk. He quickly blurts out an apology for Eve crashing into her business, but Lane shuts him down and tells him, "Don't sweat it," when he says, "I'm Ryuji," he's just a third-class enchanter, trying to make friends, not start trouble. Lean cracks back into the spotlight as an alchemist, then casually drops that she's sitting at third-class rank, and yeah, she's not playing around, and tells him straight up that her party collapsed right before his eyes. Ryuji shoves a cloth into her hands and tells her to wipe those tears for now, then Lean snaps back, thanking him for being so damn kind. Ryuji flashes her a small smile and tells her he knows she's drowning in all of it, but now that they're both outcasts, he suggests they grab a drink, shut the world out, and just breathe. Lena agrees to hang out, then reminds him she's still a minor, so she can't even touch the alcohol, but she's totally good with just keeping him company. They huddle together in the tavern as Ryuji wraps up his tale, telling her that's basically the whole story of how he ended up stuck there, alone. He tells me it was his own leader, guy, who kicked him out, and the wild irony is that somehow, the two of them still wound up in the exact same place. Lean tells him just say her name, and Ryuji fires back like, then it's only fair, she should call me Ryuji from now on too. She tries to get a little formal because she's younger than him, but Ryuji waves it off like it's nothing, and tells her it truly doesn't matter. Ryuji swerves the conversation and leans in, asking if she'll show him her medicine, because he's genuinely dying to see what she can cook up. Line grins and tells him it's totally okay, then reaches into her gear and yanks out something so he can see it. She slaps 2 sharp glass vials onto the table and grins as she explains. These are the newest pieces she managed to forge. As Ryuji sizes them up, Lean blurts, "Go ahead, feel the bottle," but warns him not to mess with the lid or the pin, and Ryuji shoots back, "Don't worry, I've got this." Lean lifts the vial high and says it took forever to craft, and the pride on her face hits even harder, especially since it cost. Ryuji stares it down, clocks that the outside looks totally normal, and then boom, he unleashes his magic to peer inside and find out what's really going on, and he fires up his skill, chants a praise, and a magic circle snaps into existence right in front of the bottle, so that stats instantly flare on screen. This is a fire bomb that bursts into flames within a 1-meter radius, and as he checks the power, he can't stop himself. He's saying the whole thing is straight up amazing. Ryuji insists his power is way stronger than the Berserk Mage's magic, so hard that her brain short-circuits and she snaps, calling him a total exaggerator. Then it hits him, the output is 4 times better than what the genius Suzu can pull off, and if he slaps his own enchantment on top, the power would go totally off the charts. So he leans in and asks, "Do you realize what it means just to be able to make something like this?" And Lean tilts his head and straight up admits, yeah, he's right. Then he brings up that Marie told her the materials were just too expensive, and she lets a tiny smile slip in as she starts to talk, like she's right on the edge of revealing the catch. Lean leans in and tells Ryuji, "I don't care if I have to push past my limits. I'm determined to make something truly great." She pours every ounce of herself into her work, then asks him if teaming up with her creations to help people is seriously the best thing ever. Ryuji tells her she's totally right, says they're basically the same, slams his hand on the table, and Lean just stares in shock at his sudden burst of energy. He tells you that as an enchanter, he's absolutely obsessed with his craft, proud of every spell he pulls off and every ounce of work he grinds into it. And man, it feels insanely rewarding when everything he builds finally hits the world and gets used to its full potential. Lean tries to say his name, but a thunderous clatter from across the room snaps Ryuji around to find out what's happening. A bald dude at his own table throws a full-on tantrum, screaming at the staff not to mess with him. The guy bellows that he always scores beer and meat after every quest, but the manager just stands there, visibly stressed, trying to squeeze in a single word. The adventurer keeps yelling that he's a second-class rank, and that he's basically the one hauling the whole town's economy on his back. So the manager finally admits that the rare cut of meat he begged for is completely out of stock, but somehow the guy doesn't even flinch. Ryuji's already fuming in his head, smug that his timing for the convo finally hit the perfect moment. Then this guy barges in and throws a scene. Lean glances over at that loud adventurer and says she can smell the alcohol on him from clear across the room. She asks Ryuji what they're even supposed to do about it, and he just throws a hand over his mouth, like a wild idea just struck him. He tells her she's right, and admits it wouldn't be fair to demand she work with him without first proving what he can do. Before she can even blink, he snatches a bottle of medicine off the table, says he's borrowing it, and ditches her in stunned confusion. Lean blasts out his name, and Ryuji marches right up to the bald guy, squaring off with him face to face to confront him. The adventurer yanks his shout to a stop for one breath, then demands of Ryuji, "Who the hell do you think you are?" Ryuji stayed cool, saying they were only trying to enjoy their drinks, and begging the guy to turn the noise down a notch. The dude snaps at Ryuji to wipe that cocky grin off his face, then demands to know his rank, so Ryuji shrugs and casually says he's a third-class enchanter. He stares at him like it's disgusting, then growls that a low-ranked support who never even fights on the front lines has no right to act so smug. Ryuji's face turns ice-cold serious, and Lean stands right beside him, eyes wide with worry, bracing for whatever he's about to do next. He just sighs, slaps a hand to his head, and mutters that guy was exactly like this too, because everyone's obsessed with rank. And then he hits you with it. He swears there are tons of other things just as important as some silly rank number. The bald adventurer snaps out of his patience, blasts the whole thing as nonsense, then swings a punch and roars that Ryuji is ruining his drink. Ryuji doesn't blink. He locks eyes with the guy and tells him, straight to his face, he'll show him the truth. He raises the medicine bottle, flicks his whirlwind enchantment on, and wind magic spirals around his hand like it's alive. He recalls how that guy laughed at him for not being a frontline fighter, and then he detonates a massive burst of pressure. The wind slams them like a freight train. Ryuji growls that this isn't just punishment. It's for the pride of every hardworking craftsman that guy just spat on. The adventurer gets blasted backward and slams the ground hard, and Ryuji just stands there like that hit didn't even register. He scrambles up, bolts off screaming, and Lean just stands there, frozen in total shock, staring at the back of Ryuji's head as he disappears. Lean is totally stunned by what she just witnessed, whispering that it can't be real, that there's no way this is even possible, while the whole tavern starts going wild, they're the ones screaming their heads off, chanting that his power is absolutely insane. Lean whips around to Ryuji, eyes still foggy, and blurts out, "What did you just do?" But Ryuji flashes her a laid-back grin, then tells her to pay the tab and hit the road. He just kept moving and saying, "Yeah, don't expect any peace or quiet in a place like this. You're not getting a single minute of it." Once they're outside, he leans in and tells her medicine is top tier, and admits the tavern would have been flattened if he'd used it the usual way. Lean just locks eyes with him and demands to know, did that insane burst of power really come from his enchantment magic? He shrugs it off like it's nothing, then casually confirms, yeah, he just sprinkled some wind magic into the whole thing. And he breaks it down, how he steered the flames perfectly so they never burned anything they weren't meant to, while he weaponized the wind to blunt the real punch, so the guy wouldn't end up in the hospital. Ryuji squares up to Lean as they stride down the cobblestones, and he speaks straight to them, saying, if he throws enchantment magic onto medicine the way he just did, he can supercharge its effects, or turn it into something way more useful. He halts mid-step, locks eyes with her, and demands to know why they can't just team up, just the two of them. Lean sinks onto a park bench, looks totally thrown off, and blurts, "So you mean we're joining up as an adventuring party?" But Ryuji leans in and makes it crystal clear. He's got nothing but love for what she does, even beyond any party, because he's a craftsman too. He tells her they should set up a workshop and grind side by side, so they can live that laid-back dream life that'll have everyone else green with envy. He imagines an enchanter and an alchemist teaming up, like they're about to prove to the entire world just how insanely incredible they truly are. Lean clenches her fists in her lap, whispering that they should run a workshop together, over and over, while Ryuji fires off the question, asking what she thinks. He insists it's a pretty fair deal for both of them. Lean stares at him, tears of pure joy shimmering in her eyes, and blurts out, "Yes," saying she'd absolutely love to join him. When the clock tower slams into 3, a voice suddenly cuts across the air and calls Ryuji from the other side. Emin, the guildmaster, barrels in and demands, "Are those rumors real?" Ryuji quitting the Berserk party and slipping out of town. Lane steps up and confirms it without hesitation. Emin's jaw drops when he realizes Lane is walking out too, but she only grins at him and warmly thanks him for everything he's done for her all these years. Iman rubs his head, admits the guild normally has a hard rule against jumping into brawls between parties, then stops because he can't. But he can't stop himself. He fires off a question to Ryuji. What's he gonna do about Minori and Suzu now that Lee's gone? Lean looks completely out of place and shoots a question. Are those two the top-tier guys from the Berserk Guild? And the moment she asks, things start to lade. Ryuji stepped in, talking coolly to land the truth. Turns out the swordsman and the mage in that party are actually his younger stepsister. It finally clicks for Lane. She realizes why he's been locked in on them the whole time. Ryuji plows forward, digs into his gear, and tells the guildmaster, "There's one last thing, I need your help with it." He thrusts the package into Emin's hands and orders him to deliver it to his sisters, while making sure Guy never even sniffs out the truth. Iman freezes for a beat in silence, and you can practically feel the weight of that request crushing down on him. Then he snaps his eyes shut, swears he's got it, and promises he'll make sure the sisters get that package. Standing there by the gate, Emin glares at the two of them and demands where they think they're headed next. And Ryuji spills that he's been thinking about going even farther out to a distant town, so they can open a workshop together. Emin flashes a quick wave and insists they'll meet again someday, so they need to take care of themselves until that day comes. He throws in one last order, telling Ryuji to walk away, and handing him Minori's and Suzu's safety over to his own shoulders, which Ryuji turns back and grins, then shoots the guildmaster a real, heartfelt thank you. With a huge grin, Line slips in beside them and tells the guildmaster to stay safe, because the moment they're finally set to leave, things are about to kick off. They kick into a steady walk down the dusty road away from the city, and after a while, Lean finally pipes up to grab his attention. She leans in and demands, "Are they really officially moving to Southstead, or not?" Ryuji points out that the main road cuts straight through town, and it's right next to a magic stone mine. So this is the perfect sweet spot for them to finally team up and build their own workshop side by side. He tells them, "We're walking, so it'll take us nearly half a month to reach our destination." And even though Lean knows she has to save every coin, she can't shake the dread of that brutal, never-ending trip. She grabs his attention and bluntly reminds him, "We've got no choice. Both of us got kicked out and not a single coin's coming in, so what now?" So Ryuji lays it out plain. Once they land, they're going to have to hunt down some serious cash to build that shop for real. He glances at her, flashes a grin, and tells her they've got all the time in the world, so they should just chill. Lean shoots him a look and admits he's probably right, so she decides to drop the stress and just enjoy the ride. As they head down the road, Ryuji declares that from now on she's under his care, and Lean beams and echoes it back with pure joy. Traveling side by side beneath the stars, as the very first night of their new lives finally begins. Deep in the woods, a pack of bandits catches sight of some travelers, then realizes their armor screams one thing: the royal army. The crew's leader roars with laughter at the knights' perfect outfits, basically saying the taxpayers shelled out for that fancy gear. The guards instantly clock the ambush. Bandits are everywhere, so the lead knight snaps, Lady Sesai fall back. But the bandit boss just grins and tells them flat out, "I'm not saying it twice." Then he orders them to dump every last thing of value and get out. Lady catches my face and goes, "You look scared." I can't deny it. I feel something terrible is coming, and I already know it won't wait for us to reach the frontier. Meanwhile, Ryuji stared up at the stars, then made the call, time to pitch camp for the night. Lean says keep this pace and we'll hit Southstead tomorrow, and Ryuji just nods like he's locked in. As they finally settle in, Lean's curiosity sparks, and she blurts out, "Ryuji, why on earth did you decide to become an enchanter?" Ryuji glances off to the side and tells her it's a pretty long story, but he's more than ready to share it. The campfire keeps snapping and crackling right between them as they catch their breath for the brutal long walk ahead. Ryuji stares into the flames, then blurts that the Sakura Empire sits on the far eastern edge of the continent. Like Lane, it's where he grew up. He explains the whole place is named for cherry blossoms, and says right about now, the flowers should be bursting across the country. But his mood snaps and he admits it. After the war, he has no clue whether those breathtaking views still exist at all. Lean freezes in total shock, blurting out, "Wait, was there really a civil war back in your homeland?" Ryuji confirms it, staring back at the moment his world shattered, when he was only 12 and lost both of his parents. He remembers bursting out of the country, yanking his little sister's minority and Suzu along with him, as the smoke choked everything behind them. They were left with absolutely nothing. After the fighting tore their families away for good. Lin tells him that's a mountain for anyone to carry, and Ryuji only nods, calm and quiet, like yeah, that was real. He says everything flipped the moment the master took them in, drilling them with every skill they'd need to live on their own. The name keeps getting repeated, and he can't help but wonder, who is this mystery person, really? Ryuji peers down into his drink and says the guy never once gave them a name, so he just starts calling him Master, and that's where the chaos. And then he goes on to say that the man was brutally harsh, yet somehow it was him who taught him the basics of fighting and magic. Turns out Master clocked it too. Ryuji wasn't just good at enchantment, he had real talent. Ryuji grins and tells everyone that after that training, it finally clicked. He knows he's found his true calling. Then he hits her with a bombshell, telling Lin that her teacher is actually an elf too, and it leaves her completely stunned and gasping as the world tilts. And it slammed in his chest like one more reason he couldn't just turn his back and walk away, leaving her to face it alone. He admits the thought of her being used by strangers who don't know her real worth is unbearable. Then he suddenly freezes, drops his head, and apologizes to her, admitting he dragged her into all this just to soothe his own guilt. Lin looks totally flustered and blurts at Ryuji to stop bowing it right away, before it gets any worse. He tells her that now they're both caught in the same storm, so there's no point in freaking out anymore. Lin breaks into a grin and tells Ryuji she's honestly so happy he reached out to her at the guild. Then she opens her mouth to say more. Ryuji just stares at her and blurts that it's a massive relief knowing she feels the same, and you can see how genuinely happy he is, like he's finally breathing again. Nothing feels awkward between them until it hits him. He suddenly remembers the medicine she showed him back at the tavern, and he tells her he's got magic stones he's been dying to show her. Lin's eyes light up. She can't wait to see what he brought, so Ryuji thrusts forward his gloved hand and yanks them out. Lin is completely blindsided. She can't wrap her head around it. Those magic stones look exactly like gigantic, insanely expensive jewels. Ryuji tells them straight up, your power doesn't stay the same. It shifts based on how well someone can cut and shape it. He starts firing them out one by one, adamant, frigid, and sealing stones, then launches into what each of them does, right before the explanation cuts off. Both of them suddenly freeze. Lin snaps her head over her shoulder, feeling something off in the air as, instantly on high alert, he tells Lin to stop asking and to look over by the trees. Ryuji freezes on the spot and leans in, because he can hear brawlers tearing into each other and the thunderous clash of metal right next to him. Which means, when Lin realizes this is turning dangerous, she blurts that she can't make out a word he's saying, only that it all sounds like bandits, and it's getting. Ryuji locks onto the noise, because with the fight this close, they can't just pretend it's nothing. This is their problem now. He points out that if those guys are real bandits, odds are they're lining up to be the next targets too. Ryuji whips around to Lun, blurting that he's about to jump in and help, only he has to know right now if she can actually fight. Lin doesn't hesitate. She cuts in, tells him she's totally fine, and orders them to move fast. Ryuji throws the go-ahead, and the two of them sprint straight toward the sounds of the fight. Ryuji sprints beside her and promises, this is it. I'm gonna show you what these magic stones can really do in a real fight. Up ahead, the fight is already raging. Sparks burst everywhere, and every weapon clash lands like thunder, it looks like. The lead bandit is already on top. He taunts his rivals, sneers, what's wrong, while clocking that their moves are grinding to a crawl. The guards are getting crushed at the line, and the main guy screams for everyone to stay standing, because they have to protect Lady Cease no matter what. Lin and Ryuji finally burst into the clearing. She jerks a finger toward the chaos, telling him they've found the spot, and Ryuji scans the scene and blurts, I see them, then snaps to Lin, can you pull their attention? And she's already moving like she's been waiting for the cue. She tells him to back off and trusts her, then snaps her magic into place at once, raising her hands as a blazing, glowing circle forms in front of her, while, as she screams a chant for the flames, she unleashes a storm of fire arrows that punch straight into the bandits' crowd. A bandit gets struck clean in the chest, and a brutal scream rips out of him as the magic blindsides him. The lead bandit snaps his head around, stunned out of his mind. He never expected anyone else to show up, and now he realizes reinforcements are here to crush them. Ryuji slips straight into the chaos with a smirk, daring the others like, move over, I want in on the fun too. One bandit snaps and starts cursing him out, but Ryuji isn't just standing there, he's moving, not talking. He slams the attack aside and shoots back instantly, launching a massive kick that flings the guy straight through the air. Ryuji eyed the fight like it was dragging, wondering if these bandits were seriously the best they had, because compared to Minori's skills, he couldn't help thinking these guys were just clowning around. But one bandit spots the gap, bursts forward from behind Ryuji, and screams he's got him wide open, right before he gets. The instant his sword bites into him, Ryuji doesn't even turn his head, just lets the fool get blasted backward and fly away as the bandit snaps, pure shock hits him. He just stares at his blade, baffled, trying to understand how his own attack got deflected like that. Ryuji jabs a diamond moonstone into view and starts firing off how it works, then blurts out what it does. It wipes out every physical hit aimed at whoever's holding it, and before the guy even fully registers what just happened, Ryuji smashes him with a punch that has him groaning. On Lean's side, she's tearing through the last pieces of her magic, then she snaps her hands and screams for a lightning web, her spark web spell, so she can trap everyone so the last bandits get hogtied and dumped on the dirt. Ryuji scans the pile of guys, and Lean straight up confirms, yep, that's the whole crew. She rushes to the knights, checking every one of them for danger, when the lead guard assures her they're all good, thanking them for stepping in to help, and then the hooded woman steps forward, smiling like she owns the night, and she apologizes for keeping them waiting, because she isn't just anyone, she's Lady Cease. Lady tries to step forward, but the lead knight slams in front of her and cuts her off right away. She looks totally rattled as she stumbles back, so Ryuji goes, alright, let's keep it calm, and tells her it's totally fine, because he understands they each have their own reasons to stay low, so she shouldn't stress. Then he adds, we only lent a hand so our own campsite stays safe through the night, while Lean just stands there watching. The lead knight steps up and tells them he can't thank them enough, then turns to Ryuji and Lean and says, let my group take it from here. Handle the bandits for us. Lean shoots a look at the knight, spots just how wrecked the guards are, and then she shouts at him. Right after that, she yanks out a tiny potion bottle and asks if they want healing medicine, still tense, like she's scared she's stepping on toes. But the knight drags on. He glances at his wounds, swears it's nothing, yet blood still leaks down like the fight isn't over. Ryuji clocked the vibe and goes, it's totally normal to feel freaked out when a random stranger hands you medicine and just moves on. He lifts his arm to brag about a tiny scratch, saying he got it from some bushes while they were sprinting over to help, and that. Turns out the timing is spot on for the test. Lane stares at him completely baffled like, wait, what are you even trying to pull off? Ryuji slams the potion onto his scratched arm to prove it's safe, and leans into the lead knight, swears there's nothing suspicious about the drink, then asks, quick as a spark, if he wants it right now. Then the other guards burst into shouting, we want some too, forcing the lead knight to scramble to silence them, but Lady Ceci strides in, snaps at the knight diet to calm down, and then she locks eyes with him and promises she'll take the blame for everything that went down. The knight fires off excuses, but Lady Ceci just glares, one look, and he's instantly shut down. Ryuji barrels in, introduces himself, and tells them he's set on opening a workshop in Southstead. He tells the crew, if you like the medicine, drop by, come see me in person. Later, Ryuji breaks down how he figured out those people were high-ranking and chose to act on it. Then he bows his head and apologizes to Lean for dragging her into the whole mess. And then he admits, I'm also sorry, I used your medicine without asking you first. Lean says dealing with nobles is whatever, but she's still totally stunned he downed the potion without even blinking. Ryuji shoots back that being cautious is exactly what a knight should do, and yeah, the guy made the right call, so he admits it, seeing Lean's good intentions get doubted like that just didn't sit right with him. And Lean just freezes for a beat, staff clutched in her grip, eyes fixed as he strides ahead. She flashes him a warm smile, and basically says that kind of selfless act is exactly the sort of thing he always does. Ryuji shoots his arms out, glares at the sky like time's slipping away, and asks if they should bail back to camp. Lena nods, then pushes for rest right now. We need to recharge so we're ready for tomorrow, and soon. Soon the story snaps to the far southwestern edge of the continent, right where the city of Southstead sits, waiting. This is a huge strategic win for the kingdom of Basestein, because that harbor isn't just big, it's everything. That's what it's supposed to be like, but the second you glance over, the woman next to him is clearly having a rough time. Ryuji scans the silent building, and the moment he does, he mutters that the town is nothing like the lively place he pictured. And Lena nods along, saying it totally fits, because the Adventurers Guild is in a heartbreaking mess right now. Ryuji trudges up to the counter, all stiff and awkward, and blurts out to the receptionist, "Are you Anne?" Trying. He has to kick off the move-in process, but first he slams on the brakes and demands to know, does this place even count as Southstead? The receptionist looks totally wiped out, but she double checks and confirms, yes, they're in the right city but even with highways stretching north and east, and a mine practically around the corner, something still feels horribly wrong. This place used to be a gigantic waterside transportation hub, and everyone in Southstead knew exactly where they had to be. So Lean just stares, totally lost, and blurts out, "Wait, did I get that right?" Turns out about a year ago, everything crashed downhill. When the magic stone supply suddenly tanked, the mine shut its doors for good. Then boom, a massive earthquake slammed the area and shattered the port, trapping the city in total ruin with no way to bounce back. Anne points out that these brand new highways and trade routes are springing up in other places too. Lately, the number of people streaming through this town has crashed hard, like someone slammed the brakes on the whole place. Ryuji just stands there, visibly wrecked with stress, and it's so not the fun, hype start he'd been hoping for. Anne fires off a question to Ryuji, "So what's your plan?" Then presses, "Do you want me to just push through the residency paperwork anyway?" But before things can drag, Lean bursts in and says, "If Ryuji's ready, then I'm in too." Ryuji pauses for a breath, then decides, no games, he'll tell them the real reason he's here. He broke it down. There was one exact reason he felt forced to transfer to this specific city. Outside the building, Anne's voice cuts through the air as she pleads one last time. Are they truly, absolutely sure about this? And Lean tells Ryuji, "After I heard your reason, I swear this has to be our top priority." So, when she tells him to not even sweat it, Ryuji shoots her a grateful look and blurts out thanks, and tells them the registration's finally done, then beams that she can't wait to team up with them. And Lean tells her, "We truly can't thank you enough for the help." Then Lean blurts out that they're seriously considering launching a workshop right here in town. They were already on the hunt, scouring for the perfect place to move into. Anne's eyes light up. She's got a brilliant idea, and she says, "If that's the case, I know exactly who you need." They're about to meet a dude named Thor. He can line them up with the Commerce Guild and get them the hookup. Thor steps up and says, "I'm Thor," then grins and tells the group he's already heard every detail about what's going on with the men. As they start for the door, Thor deadpans that this property is a long hike away. Ryuji nods along, fully convinced it's way off the beaten path from the heart of town. Thor points out that even with the distance, this spot is a dream for a workshop. The rent's fair and the location is right on the money. The crew finally bursts through to the destination, and Thor roars that they've made it, they're here, showing off a massive stone building as one of the properties he's offering them. Lean's jaw drops at how massive the place is, and right when the shock hits, Ryuji mutters that it might be even too big. But he can't resist the pull of curiosity, so he goes straight to Thor and asks for permission to head in and take a look. The inside is caked in dust and stitched with cobwebs, and it screams just how long that place has been left to die. After scanning the hollow rooms, Ryuji spins back toward her, leaning in to catch what she's really thinking. And she admits it'll take a ton of scrubbing, but the nearby forest makes it the perfect spot. Ryuji hits the call immediately, tells Thor he'll take the house, and thanks him like, "Deal S locked in." Thor gets blindsided by how fast they moved, but he shoots back that he'll bolt straight back to the guild for the papers. Ryuji gets left behind to ask, "Can we snag a head start and clean the inside while we wait?" Thor flashes a grin and waves them on, basically saying, "You signed the contract, so go right now." Ryuji points at the place and says they signed so fast that Thor's basically going, "Fine, take the materials outside for free." But Lean stares at that giant mountain of logs and bluntly tells them, "Yeah, those things look brutal to move." Ryuji yanks out a glowing gem and tells her, "This is exactly where my Herculean strength magic stone kicks in." Lee gets completely caught off guard, but Ryuji just grins and tells her, "With this stone, all that backbreaking work turns into a total breeze." That gets Lean totally amped, and she tells him, "If you're going to do that, then you're leaving every last bit of the housework to me." She's strutting with pride, bragging that her alchemy makes repairing or even forging brand new furniture so easy it's basically a joke. Ryuji nods and says the plan's rock solid, then tells her it's finally time to start building the place. Lean erupts with a thunderous shout of yes, as they gear up to rip the old building into their brand new home, and she wastes no time, yanking out her staff and blasting her magic to life. Inside the house, a magic circle flares on the floor, and suddenly furniture starts popping into existence one by one. Lean throws herself into her alchemy, forging shelves and tables, while Ryuji hauls the heavy stuff. Then somehow, despite the grind, they smash through the whole interior in record time. They step back, stare in awe at their brand new workshop, and realize it's already loaded with every piece of alchemy gear they need to start cooking. But when Thor strides back in, he dead stops. His whole body freezes on the spot, He blurts an apology for keeping them waiting, then snaps his attention to the damage and demands to know what they did to this place. The whole room gets flipped from a dusty wreck into a top-tier lab, and Thor just can't stop staring at the insane transformation. He basically tells them, "Are you kidding me? How'd you pull off getting this far in such a short time? Because that's seriously incredible." And Lean just glows with pride, shouting that she truly gave everything she had. Switching into business mode, Thor yanks out the last papers and orders them to sign the contract. No problems, no delay. Ryuji just nods and then Lee spots Thor lugging around a ridiculous mountain of extra luggage, and Ryuji leans in for a closer look. Wait, is that a whole bunch of vegetables you're carrying? Thor suddenly gets awkward, brushes it off like it's just a personal thing, then finally blurts out the truth. Yeah, it's probably him being a full-on hypocrite. Lean looked totally thrown off by Thor, because the moment Thor said hypocrisy again, it hit him like a gut punch. But before he even gets the chance to explain, she spots something shifting in the bushes outside the workshop. She spots two elf girls lurking in the trees and blurts out loud, "Wait, are you really elves?" Thor strolls right up with a grin, flashes that he finally tracked them down, and drops off a fresh haul of vegetables for the day. The older girl practically glows, blurting out, "Big brother Thor," and thanking him for the help. Then she nudges the little one to finally speak up. Lena, the younger girl, flashes him a massive grin and chirps, "Thank you." Lean can't stop gushing about how adorable the kids are, then whips around to Thor and demands to know who they really are. Thor snaps back to himself, realizes he forgot his manners, and blurts out an apology, saying he needs to properly introduce the kids to Ryuji and bow the right way. He tells them the sisters are literally next door, running their lives solo with no parents around, and then it hits even harder. Their farm soil is trash, so they can't grow a single bite of food. With a heavy heart, Lean listens as Thor bluntly explains that those girls are just scrambling to survive, any way they can. Thor shows them the kids' rough hands and snaps, "We try to take what we can, but it still isn't enough," then points out that's why he's been sharing his own food just to keep them alive. Lean locks eyes on the girls' tiny, calloused hands and whispers Ryuji's name, because he can see just how brutal life has been to them. Ryuji stares at the dead land, realizing the soil's gone truly awful, and he falls silent for a moment, like he's about to say the rest. As he watches the sisters huddle together in the dirt of their empty farm, something inside him twists, and it clearly hits hard. He jerks forward with pure determination and declares they're doing it. Lee freezes, stunned by that sudden fire blazing in his eyes. As Ryuji blurts out his crazy plan to forge a brand new field with his enchantment magic, he grins and swears the possibilities of his power are truly endless. Clutching that glowing stone in his hands, he vows they'll unleash enchantment magic and build a real field for the girls. Thor looks totally dumbfounded, staring at Ryuji like, "What are you even saying?" Because the idea of using enchantment for farming makes zero sense to him. Little Lena looks even more baffled and blurts out, "There's a whole field right in front of us," leaving him stuck on the next move. He slips away and leaves the entire group gaping at Ryuji like he's lost his mind, while he just stands there, locked in, ready to jump straight into work. Ryuji stares across the dead, dry field, then slams on the brakes and reworks his plan because he realizes he just came off way too intense, so he quickly asks if he can cast a spell to help their vegetables grow better. Lana asks if it's really magic, and little Lena's eyes light up. She's bursting with excitement, swearing that healthy vegetables are an awesome idea. Ryuji nods, rolls up his sleeves, and charges into the heart of the patch as he scans for the perfect spot, then shoots the group a quick question, "Is it cool if I stand here?" Without a second to spare, he slams an enchanted stone straight into the dry dirt. Ryuji grins and says, "That should be enough," but Thor looks completely lost and blurts, "So all it takes is burying a rock." Ryuji tells everyone the magic stone already carries a deadly specific enchantment, but the real shock won't hit until tomorrow morning. Then he summons the two sisters to help him finish the ritual, and Lana's confidence drops fast. She has no clue what they're supposed to do. Lean just grins, tells the girls the secret spell is simple, and then plants the words, "Get well soon," right into the field. Lena looks absolutely fired up and blurts out something loud, while Lana beams with joy, so happy her little sister is this into it. And the two of them scream across the field together, urging the crops to perk up, just like Lean told them to. Back at the old party, one person starts screaming at Guy and Sean like they're about to explode, pure rage, and it's still building. Minori barges straight into Guy's space and demands, point blank, that he spell out exactly what happened to Ryuji earlier that day. She's seething and screaming that if Ryuji had actually been there with them, they wouldn't have been battered and pushed into a desperate escape. He scowls and waves her off like she's nothing, then lies straight through his teeth, claiming Ryuji just vanished on his own. Suzu snaps, calling him a liar to his face, swearing Ryuji would never bail on her, or the rest of the team, no matter what. But Guy tries to dodge the chaos, pushing them to retreat first. Then Minority snaps, turns on Sean, and roars at him to talk. Sean's mind starts screaming as his body suddenly feels like it's weighed down by a ton, and he realizes, yeah, they're really taking hits hard without Ryuji's buffs. A Minority glares them down, skips the small talk and demands, so you're failing now. Did you lose the magic stone of sublimation? Guy finally clocks how badly he needed Ryuji's help, and now he feels utterly exposed, like everything's about to fall apart right after. Minori goes after him, saying he only needed a lame excuse to kick out a miser because he hated. So she grabs the loot, slings exile at him like it's nothing, accusing him of hunting up excuses just to throw Ryuji out, and the guy is left completely speechless that she even dared to say it. So Sean tries to save face with a straight-up lie. He insists Marie was the real money-hungry one, and that she twisted Guy's arm. Marie snaps, screaming at Sean for trying to dump the whole blame on her while Suzu fights her way through the chaos and yells at Minori, "We've gotta move. Monsters are about to crash in." Minori snaps into confidence. She knows exactly what she has to do, and she plants her feet, not backing away before. Right when the bombshell hits, she and Suzu both bolt from the party. No delay, no second thoughts. The Minority tells Suzu it's time, and she and him just stride off, leaving the rest of the crew in their wake. Marie looks at Guy like, what's going on? But he suddenly blows up, barks at her to shut up, and tells her to get out of his way. Guy is absolutely fuming, spitting curses under his breath as he realizes his party is crumbling. Back at the guild, Minori and Suzu burst through the doors and immediately tell the guildmaster they're home. Emin scans them with his arms crossed, then says it's weirdly rare to see the two of them this wrecked. Minority breaks it down. Guy and the crew totally botched everything, so they had no choice but to bail on the mission. Emin calls out those idiots for totally lowballing Ryuji's enchantment magic, and Minori's jaw drops when she realizes he knew all along. So, Emin shrugs it off like it's nothing, then demands where the rest of the guys are hiding out. Suzu tells him she left the rest of them trapped back in the dungeon, then shuts it down for good. She and the others are officially done with that party. A man leans in and insists it's the perfect move. Then, right as he stretches for that letter, and slams it into their hands, yelling that the two girls have to read it right now. Minori snatches the paper, and pure shock hits her, because she realizes the message is from Ryuji. Emin admits he's been clutching that letter ever since they left town. He just couldn't bring himself to hand it over while Guy was still around. So, Suzu spots that Ryuji's waiting for them in Southstead, whips around to her friend and demands, "So what's the plan?" And Minori doesn't even hesitate. She grins and says like it's obvious that she's going to find him. The next morning, the sun finally blazes over the quiet workshop as the story continues, right there where it left off. Ryuji jolted awake, stretched like he'd finally earned real rest, and just as relief hit, bam, he heard a strange noise. He hears Lana yelling at the top of her lungs for him to come outside right now, and his gut clenches. Something must have gone wrong, so he bursts out, racing to Lena, who's pointing at the field and yelling at him to come see it. Lean staggers after him, rubbing sleep from his eyes, still wondering why everyone's losing their minds this early. Lena keeps barreling forward, shouting at both of them to hurry up and come look, right as the moment builds toward what comes next. As the entire crew stood out in the field, staring in total shock at the insane crops that had sprouted overnight, Ryuji finally admits he never expected his work to hit this hard, while the kids are screaming, "So cool," like every second of it is magic. And Lena grabs Ryuji's attention and swears his magic is straight up incredible. Lana can't even wrap her head around how all of this happened in one single night. Ryuji. So Rugi tells him, "Yesterday I buried a Pura moonstone, crafted just for this, and I enchanted it to make the crops grow at warp speed." Lean asks if he's talking about the god of fertility, then presses even harder. Has he truly never used a stone like that before? Ryuji shrugs and says adventurers are just drifters who never stick around in one place, and Lean has to swallow her pride and admit, yeah, that's fair. Lena just stands there while her stomach growls like thunder. She's absolutely starving. Lean snaps to it and says, "We're already out here, so we might as well start cooking breakfast for everyone." And then, so she orders Lana and Lena to go grab some fresh vegetables, and the two of them practically jump at the chance to help. Ryuji shouts that it's finally harvest time, and Lena lets out a massive cheer as everyone jumps into work. The sisters beam as they haul crates packed with fresh, giant vegetables. Everyone drops into their seats for a huge spread of fresh greens, and the sisters can't wait a second longer to dig in. The food vanished in an instant. There wasn't even a single scrap left on those plates. Lana throws herself back, saying she's completely stuffed, while Lena just grins. Finally, her stomach's full. Lean grins and tells everyone she hopes the meal hit the spot, and Ryuji looks totally satisfied with how it all went, until. But he whips around to Thor and admits that, yeah, they've got food now. Yet somehow, things still aren't truly okay, which is when he trails off, like the real problem is about to explode. Ruggy spills the truth to the girls. Earlier, out in the fields, he spotted the soil looking even worse than it did yesterday. He brings up the Pyrrha magic stone he used to speed up the harvest, saying that stone basically drains the land dry, sucking up every last drop of water and nutrient, until the ground slowly starts to die, and then Lean catches on this is her moment, and she steps forward, demanding to know if it's finally her turn to jump in and help. Ryuji leans in and asks if she can fix the soil, and the moment she says she can hunt the ingredients in the forest, he shoots back, then go now. Ryuji squints, totally lost, and blurts out what they're trying to say, still standing there, like something just doesn't add up, but Lean just beams at everyone, saying, "Leave it to me and Ryuji, trust me, it'll all work out." Ryuji tells Lana and Lena he's handing over those lucky stones, then grins and says Lane will be the one who gets the soil cleaned and fixed up. The girls get blindsided. Lana whips around to him and demands, "Are you really sure you want to hand those stones away?" Ryuji swears he's certain, but before he can prove it, he demands a trade. He wants them to hand over a slice of their field so Lean can use it. He tells her, since you're an alchemist who makes medicine, you need a place to grow every last plant you'll ever use for your work. Lana says she's totally cool with them using the field, but then she drops a warning. There could be a huge problem. Ryuji lines in clothes and demands to know what's really eating at her about the idea. Lana blurts out that wild boars keep tearing through the place, and she's terrified the part of the field she helps out with is going to get wrecked the same way. Ryuji just grins and tells her, "I get it," like it's nothing, then promises it'll be a clean, easy fix. Ryuji yanks out a crystal and smirks, saying there's just enough soil in the field's corner to make his whole plan work. So he raises the mudcore magic stone, and it erupts in a blazing, intense glow, until that hulking golem of thick mud and packed earth grinds itself back together and stands up right in the middle of the field. Ryuji jabs a finger at the thing, declares, "Spriggan," and commands it to drive off any wild beasts that try messing with the people or the crops. The magic stone is locked dead center on the golem's back, gleaming as it waits to unleash power. Yet, Lean stares up at the massive thing and basically asks, "Seriously, you can just crank out golems with enchantment magic like it's nothing?" Ryuji shrugs and says alchemists churn out golems and all sorts of creations all the time, so it doesn't feel like a big deal to him, but Lean's totally crushed, blurts out that they don't make them this easy, and feels like her own skills are suddenly worthless. Ryuji whips around to the group and tells Thor that the boar problem in the field has to be stamped out for good, no more leaving. Thor just stood there, frozen in shock, sputtering that it all happened way faster than he'd ever imagined. Lean flashes Thor a warm grin and tells him straight up, everything he's done for the two sisters so far has been worth it, and she vows that she and the others will help him from now on. Then she tells him to stop beating himself up, because his kindness isn't hypocrisy at all, not in her eyes. He's convinced every move he makes is something he should be insanely proud of, and Thor's shoulders finally drop. Relief floods his face as he's struck by her words, and he just thanks her for understanding. Ryuji pressed right into the farm's logistics, asking the merchant guild if they could harvest and sell the goods, so Lana and Lena would still be left with enough food afterward. So Thor jumps in right away, swearing they'll handle everything, so the girls never have to stress about money again. Ryuji grins and tells the girls it's amazing that they can finally pig out every single day, but their faces look overwhelmed, and they press him. "Are you really sure you should be spoiling us this hard?" Ryuji just pats one on the head, telling them not to sweat it, because that's what people do, help each other out. Then he lines in and tells them the truth. Years ago, he was right there in the same sinking boat as them. He grins as the memory hits. Back then, he got plenty of help too. The two sisters can't contain their joy, beaming from ear to ear, as they thank Ryuji for everything he's done. Ryuji leans forward and scans the grounds. Now that the field work is finally done, it's time to figure out what's next. Lean steps forward and says, "Enough, focus on my business now," because he's already poured out so much time helping them. So Ryuji pauses for a beat, weighs his options, then whips around to Thor and blurts out, "What should we do?" He leans in and asks if those abandoned mines nearby are truly sealed off from the public, and if he's about to hit a hard no. Thor shoots him a surprised look, then calmly says, anybody can come and go whenever they want. Even after he warns Ryuji that the moment the Magic Stone production died, the place got abandoned, he basically tells him not to expect to stumble on anything valuable. As they talk, Lean's mind flashes back to the moment they formed their party, because deep down, he finally realizes Ryuji has been shouldering the whole weight from the start, which makes her even more determined to step up and finally become the kind of person he can truly rely on from here on out. The crew sets off for the burn mine, perched high up on the side of the mountain. Lean's footing slips on the rocks. She gasps and stumbles hard, scrambling to stay upright, even as panic spikes in her chest. She promised she'd do her best, but this trail is already proving way more than she ever. She cuts a deal, then screams at Ryuji, stunned that their simple trip turned into this disaster, while he just shoves her to keep running and questions whether this chaos is nothing but the job when. They trek along a mountain cliffside trail, and the burned mine range's massive, snow-choked peaks loom all around them. So huge the path they're on looks insanely tiny, like one wrong step will send them sliding. Sketchy, Ryuji snaps at her to watch her step as the earth fractures beneath their feet, and Lean lets out a shaky breath, scrambling to find anything solid before she. Ryuji glances back at her with a worried stare like, are you really okay? Because he can't shake the feeling something's off, and because he finally cracks and admits he's been on edge for ages, confessing that he's seriously scared she'll trip and smash herself on these rocks. Lean flashes a nervous grin and tells him she's okay for the moment. She's still standing strong somehow, without eating the ground yet. Even though she's completely falling apart inside, she forces herself to keep going, because deep down, she's sobbing, realizing this adventure is nothing like she ever imagined. She shoots a steady glare forward, clinging to her focus with everything she's got, but that nagging worry still won't let her breathe. Ever since they ditched the main road, the closer they get to the mine, the more the whole air turns weird, like the quiet mountain path is changing right under their feet. The mountain trail is crumbling underfoot, and every step turns into a fresh threat, like the next one might be the one that finishes you, With the ground shattered to pieces, Ryuji snaps that the earthquake was so brutal it could have torn the harbor apart, so he keeps going. So yeah, the mountain's in rough shape, and Lean thinks landslides are probably cutting off the path in the worst spots. But it's clear she can't shake something from her mind. She even admits it might be rude to ask, because she desperately wants to know why Ryuji is going somewhere like this in the first place. She reminds him that Anne and Thor both warned that losing yourself in your mind is deadly, and now the whole trip feels like a reckless gamble for nothing at all. Ryuji locks eyes with her and tells her he's going, because he wants to bet on even the tiniest shot, and it leaves. He's left completely stunned. He knows the massive risk that they'll return empty-handed, just like she warned, but he's already locked in his decision. He tells her they've trained for the worst, so the trip is still worth it, danger and all. Lane takes one breath to catch up, then his eyes widen because he knows. He's right, so is they. Standing face-to-face with the mine's pitch-black entrance, she steels herself, I've got to be useful, and vows to throw every ounce of strength into this mission. Inside the mine, it's just as wrecked as they feared. Jagged rocks everywhere, rubble piled high, and the whole place utterly shattered. A goblin suddenly lunges out of the darkness, eyes blazing wide, teeth bared, like it's been waiting to pounce on them. Lean snaps completely, frozen to the core, and unleashes a gut punch of a yell the moment that monster hits the scene way too fast. But Ryuji doesn't even blink. He calls on the adamantite magic stone like it's already ready to explode into action. More goblins surge out of the shadows to strike, and he throws himself in front of Lane, shielding her from the chaos. Lean strains to cast a spell, but the moment she starts, Ryuji's spark web snaps out and catches the monsters, cutting her sentence short as they spill toward the goblins. Freeze mid-step, and Ryuji blasts the magic to pin them in place so they can't wriggle free. Then, he doesn't waste a second. He fires off a freeze bullet spell, blasting razor-sharp shards of ice forward, and the attack slams down with brutal force and obliterates the goblins on the spot, wiping the whole area in one flawless strike. Lane just stares him down, then blurts out that the whole display was straight-up amazing. Ryuji hauls her back up and fires off. You okay? Lean nods, saying she's fine. She just got totally blindsided since he burst in so fast. Lean stares at the wreckage and demands to know, was that ice bullet really a low-tier spell when it slammed with a power that felt way too massive? Ryuji just grins and tells her it's all because of the staff he's holding. So Lean's curiosity detonates, and she blurts out, is this some wild ancient relic or what? But Ryuji shoots that down. He didn't use some crazy ritual. He just poured sage into the gem on his staff to crank his magic power way higher. He spots the gem on Lean's staff, then leans in and asks if she wants him to enchant hers too, and she practically bursts with excitement to say yes. Lena nods, but Ryuji shuts it down. Let's lock in the real enchantments later, because those pics will basically write our future. They press onward, and right as they step into the cave, the tunnel splits like a fork in the road, shooting off in two different directions, and Lean studies the map, tells him straight is the way right through, then points out a risky open area if they cut left. Ryuji pauses for a beat, wrestling with the question, what way do they go next? Lean nods, promises to look into it, and then plants her staff and casts a detection spell to reveal exactly what's waiting ahead. She scans the results, then leans in and tells Ryuji, looks like a whole crowd of goblins is stacked up just to the left, waiting for us. Ryuji freezes for a heartbeat as the news hits, then his mind snaps into action and a plan starts forming fast. He cranes his gaze into the dark tunnel, spots that goblin pack huddled tight, and confirms they're heading left. While they're already out exploring, Ryuji leans in and says, let's wipe these goblins out first, then we'll haul the bodies and report the kills to the guild later. Lane's all in, she tells them to move now, and as they push deeper into the cave, she cranks up her magic and surges forward with them. Eventually, they slam into a wall, and Lean snaps that the map proves this exact spot is a dead end. But she keeps checking in with Ryuji, demanding to know if he found anything on his end. He just shrugs and tells her there's nothing worth talking about. Ryuji's face sags with disappointment as he broods, thinking how that one spot ended up being a complete disaster. He was really praying his detection magic would finally snag something, even with the low yields lately, anything, even if it wasn't a brand new Orvane. Ryuji stares at the wall, questions whether he totally missed his mark, and it leaves Lin reeling, completely off guard and unable to react. And then he asks what's wrong, right when she suddenly blurts his name and points to. She lunges toward a tiny crack in the cave wall, where a sliver of light seeps out from the other side. Ryuji locks onto the light, stunned out of his mind, realizing they might have just stumbled on something absolutely massive. But he panics that one wrong hit could smash the whole place down, so Lean steps in and tells him to back off and let her deal with it. She shuts her eyes tight, calls to the earth spirits like she's pleading with fate, and channels all her mana into one blazing spell. And the ground starts to shake hard as the rock face rips open, splitting like it's making way for them. Ryuji lights up and tells her she absolutely crushed it, while Lean explains she only loosened the soil so that light could pour through. Lean stares at the new opening and fires off. Is this really what it looks like? And Ryuji just nods like it's game over. Turns out they stumbled on a hidden path that definitely wasn't here, while the mine was still actually running. Ryuji bets the new path was torn open by some monster earthquake, one that never showed up on any of their maps. Lean points at the soft clay, plastered on the walls like hard evidence, proof he's right. He tells her she did an amazing job, and her giggles burst out instantly while the two of them lock arms and march deeper into the pitch-black cavern, side by side. Lean gushes that this new path feels unreal, and Ryuji nods hard, because it's exactly what he's been looking for, seeing as it's nothing they've seen in those tunnels so far even comes close to this. This one feels completely different. Glowing ores are scattered everywhere, lighting up the whole place like treasure from another world. So Ryuji can't shake the feeling that a massive, undiscovered treasure deposit is buried ahead, just waiting for them to find it. Miri admits she's starting to get nervous about what's waiting for them, but Ryuji jokes it'd be hilarious if they found nothing at all, but Lean's not playing. She's locked in on bringing back real good news for the guild. Lenny yelps and throws her hands over her eyes as they step deeper into the cave, because suddenly, the lights hit so hard it's way brighter than anywhere before. Turns out the whole cavern is stuffed with glowing crystals, and the entire place erupts in light. Ryuji just stands there, utterly stunned by how enormous everything is. So Lean leans in and grills him. Did he really know that worth the risk would turn into something this massive? Ryuji finally admits he never, ever expected things to turn out like this. And then it hits him. The hall is massive, way bigger than he ever pictured, and suddenly he's even imagining a juicy bonus from the merchant guild. Lean just stands there, jaw dropped, gaping at everything like it's magic, whispering, "It's so beautiful." Ryuji drops to his knees, staring hard to get a closer look at the deposits on the floor. And he knows in a split second, this ore is the real top-tier stuff. The vein scale is so massive that the second people hear the area has been rediscovered, the whole city will feel the shockwave hit. Looks like the city's about to flip everything on its head. Zarastat's magic stone supply might finally be restarting. Lee spots it too and yells to Ryuji, "This cave path doesn't stop here, it keeps digging deeper and deeper." Ryuji glances over and catches it. She's right, and then both of them finally realize just how insanely huge this place is. Lean whirls around and asks if they're pushing ahead to uncover anything else, because what happens next is too good to ignore. But Ryuji thinks they've already hit their limit for the day. He practically snaps, telling her to stop right there, because the chance of a cave-in is getting dangerously out of control. Lena nods and says, "Yeah, let's head back. Maybe we should keep an eye out for other spots like this while we're on the move." Ryuji starts to say that it sounds like a solid plan, then a sudden interruption slams him shut mid-sentence. He snatches Lean's arm, screams her name, and rips her back before she even has a chance to react. A massive rock slams through the wall, and Ryuji yanks Lena out of the blast just before it hits. Lean stands there, trembling, trying to wrap her head around it, because a giant boulder just missed them by inches. Ryuji whips back around, scans Lean fast, and fires off, "You okay?" Then he checks that she's not hurt. He replays the moment he handed her that adamant magic stone as a backup earlier, only now it's painfully obvious that when that giant boulder comes flying in with pure chaos-level force, even a diamond-hard stone just can't do a thing. Normally, Lean would have felt that coming, but Ryuji can't shake it. Those strange echoes rattling in her head make her wonder if the sound is actually farther away than it seems. He cuts himself off from the noise for a moment, because right now, something way bigger is demanding his full attention. A giant foot stomps out like it's pure spite, and yeah, that rock was definitely thrown on purpose to take them out. Lean looks up and boom, this towering muscular chest fills her view, and she's so stunned she can't even get a word out. Ryuji glares at the thing, then snarls that it's finally shown itself. A hulking, shredded goblin towers over them, snarling like it's one step away from smashing everything in sight. Ryuji figures this has to be some kind of goblin hero, while Lean just stares him down, demanding to know if he's the boss of the entire pack. Ryuji whips around to Lean and demands her staff right now, and it hits her like a punch as she scrambles to figure out what he's up to. She snaps, "Are you really serious about fighting that thing?" and warns him their opponent is probably a rank 2 monster, or even worse. Ryuji just shrugs and tells her he already figured it out, then makes it crystal clear. He's out, and he's handing all the support magic over to her. He stared at the monster, and you could tell this wasn't some run-of-the-mill freak like the ones they'd already seen. Ryuji yanks out his daggers and snaps that they can't just sit there silent, because this monster won't let them walk away without a brutal fight. He drops into a low stance and pushes Lean back with a fierce point. "The support is all on you, because it's crystal clear the beast has no plan to let them walk away from this encounter alive." Suddenly, a swarm of tiny goblins bursts out of the shadows, sprinting in to back up their leader, and Lean starts blasting them with magic, but rage takes over because the swarm just won't stop. Ryuji blurted out, "I'm sorry," but she shot back that they couldn't stop. She had to keep them busy until they could take down the big guy, and Lean snapped that they were just repeating the exact same loop again and again. Lean gapes as enemy after enemy pours in, because he realizes this isn't how high-rank monsters usually play. Where are the minions, and why is it getting worse? Out of hand, Ryuji can tell just by staring that this isn't some ordinary boss at all, because whatever they're fighting is way stronger than that. And it's turning into a total nightmare. No matter how many times he slashes at it with his razor-sharp, enchanted dagger, it won't even get a single scratch. He imagines blasting the whole place with a magic stone, then realizes that kind of blast would trigger a cave-in and wipe them both out. Sure, they've wiped out a few of the smaller goblins, but Ryuji can already feel it. At this pace, they're fighting a losing war. Suddenly, the monster erupts with a massive blast of energy, slamming into him before he can even react. Staring at the raw power this beast is blasting out, it's painfully clear his diamond enchantment can't possibly stand up to a hit like that, so he decides this fight can't drag on another second. He has to find a way to freeze that monster's movement for even a heartbeat. He stares at the rock in his hand, and it's already splitting under the weight of his magic, so it means he has to move right now. He steps up and pours everything he's got into a whirlwind enchantment, trying to slam it shut before it's too late. The distraction slams into the monster, and it unleashes a brutal roar of agony, trembling with pain. Ryuji stares at the opening he just made, grinning like, "That'll buy us enough time, watch." He screams for Lean to grab her moment right now, and she snaps back that she's already on it. Lean snaps into a power-up, urging the mana to swarm around her like lightning and drive a piercing strike straight into the enemy. She shrieks for her lightning spell to strike, and then a thunderous wall of blinding white light erupts and floods the room. Ryuji stared at the smoke, convinced that the blast was finally over with, especially after it tore through all those goblins around him. But when the dust finally settles, the monster is still standing there, flashing that creepy grin like it owns the place. Lean is absolutely stunned. She can barely process it. Her deadliest attack couldn't even leave a scratch. Ryuji leans in, and his eyes lock on the necklace, only to realize it's laced with magic resistance, the kind that changes everything. And that's when it finally clicks. Magic here is a joke, which is exactly why his dagger enchantment crashed and burned earlier. Ryuji snaps that he's screwed too. He'd been praying that a potion would save him if his magic failed. Then Lean admits the truth. She only has poisons and explosives left, so. Ryuji frets that he should have packed a freezing potion, because if he'd known it would get this bad, he totally would've. Then Lean shoots back. Do you really think a potion could freeze it solid? Ryuji snaps to it. One last move is still on the table, and then he spots that dust cloud way back, feeling in his bones that if Lean jams the monster in place with her soil-loosening magic, they'll halt its movement cold and sprint right past it to dive deeper into the room. Lean swears she's got this, then immediately demands to know where they're headed, because the thought of hitting a dead end and running nowhere scares her. Ryuji grabs her courage and swears it's going to be okay, even while that colossal monster looms above them, ready to smash down. He leans in, demands she trust him with a fearless look, and drives home the point that they're in this together, no matter what. Lean drew in a shaky breath, swore she was putting every bit of trust in him, and then she calls on the spirits of the earth, pouring her power into the ground until it crumbles right under the goblin's feet. He slammed the massive monster into a muddy snare, locking it in place so it couldn't move an inch. Ryuji flashes a confident smirk as he gears up, while Lean digs deep and unleashes everything on her next move. He snaps a small object straight into the massive monster's face while it's still trapped in the mud. Ryuji roars for Len to move, and when he suddenly yanks her, it catches her completely off guard. Lean shouts his name, baffled, but Ryuji barrels ahead and tells her they've got to sprint. No time to slow down. A brutal blast of ice erupts, and the monster shrieks as the freezing cold crashes in and threatens to finish it off. Lean finally eases down her pace, and when the threat is finally gone, she lets out one huge sigh like she's been holding her breath the whole time. As Leon steps into the fresh air, it hits him. There's the entrance right there, and Ryuji only grins like, "Told you I'd find it." He tells them earlier he felt a strange breeze curl through the cave, and he knew deep down that his gut instinct was about to nail it, but Lean can't let it go. She presses him for the truth, grilling him on what that magic stone he hurled really was. Ryuji leans in and tells her it was a frigid magic stone, because, yeah, it was one of the items he showed her on the trip to Southstead. Ryuji flashes the dark stones and claims they'll freeze anything within reach the instant the cold blasts out. But Lean is totally baffled. She's convinced magic can't touch goblin heroes, not with those necklaces around their necks. Ryuji tells her she's probably just missing how enchantments really work, and then he cuts the thought off mid. It surprises her, then he leans in and explains. Even though enchantment sounds like magic, it basically just follows the laws of nature, turning them, like exactly, into power. Unlike regular magic that lives inside you, this kind of power feels like a technique that yanks energy straight from the world itself. Lean realizes it smells just like alchemy, and Ryuji confirms she's dead right about it. He decides it's time to head back in, but Lean's freaking out. She's sure that freezing cold is still clinging around. He yanks out a heatwave magic stone, grinning as he realizes the cold's probably already slipping away. He promises that once they verify the boss is dead, they'll use that stone to wipe the air clean, so they can. Just like that, he's ready to move. Lean stands there, jaw dropping, amazed this kid can lug around more useful tools than a real-life alchemist. Ryuji stares at the chaos, realizes the enemies are sealed in ice, leaning against the stairs, just as he admits he never expected that tool to be this powerful. Ryuji drops to one knee and urges them to start harvesting the bosses and the other goblins' magic cores, because those cores are basically the most valuable prize in the whole dungeon. Once they're done, he tells her it's time to head back to the guild, and to finish that mind map like they promised. Lean nods, saying she's ready. They push on toward town until Lean finally shoves the guild doors open and shouts, "We're back." Anne leans up from the counter and greets them with a bright, warm welcome, calling out to both Ryuji and Leon as they step inside. She drops the bombshell that she knew they were going to the burn mine, then leans in and asks straight up, "Did you score anything while you were out there?" Ryuji flashes her a smirk and tells her it went perfectly, then says they even stumbled onto a brand new vein of ore. Anne gets completely blindsided by the news, but Lean doesn't even slow. She thrusts the finished map into her hands and launches into the whole explanation, while Ryuji yanks out a huge bag and shoves it at the receptionist, saying these are every magic core they managed to haul out of the mine. Anne's jaw hits the floor at the massive haul, and she blurts out whether they ran into hobgoblins, because those cores are way bigger than anything normal. Ryuji cuts in and says, it wasn't some ordinary run, there was a goblin hero down there, and she just locks up on the spot, staring at them like they've gone insane, and demands clarification because she can't believe what she's hearing. So she rubs her head, takes a sharp breath, and asks for 1 second to fully process everything. She starts rattling it all off, and yeah, they just uncovered a brand new vein and wiped out a goblin hero. But she's not the only one listening as. While the other adventurers in the hall start whispering, they fire questions back and forth like, wait, did we really just hear about that brand new discovery? The crowd erupts in a buzz. People ditch the ore and scramble to lose their minds over the goblin hero's magic core, while everyone demands to know if these two truly pulled it off all by themselves. The whole guild whips around to stare at them, and every single person starts freaking out, yelling to Ryuji and Lean that what they just pulled off is nothing short of legendary. One guy yells that a brand new vein could actually wake the whole town up again, and another person can't believe it. Like seriously, they just wiped out those monsters. Killing the moment, he left them standing side by side as the crowd's praise washed over them. Anne finally reigns in her chaos. She takes one deep breath, then declares that she'll officially accept the map and the bag of cores as a completed job. Anne blurts out that the thing they brought is so rare it doesn't even count as normal, so the guild has to make an exception and do whatever the rules say. They have to go through every last detail before they can hand over the payout. Lean's totally cool with waiting. Ryuji says the plan's perfect, but then, and points out yet another problem. If they're getting paid as a group, they still haven't even registered an official party name. Ryuji's eyes widen in shock, and he blurts out that he totally forgot, because lately they've been running non-stop and staying swamped, so he whips around to Lane and asks if she's got any good ideas, and she taps her chin, thinking hard for a beat. Then she starts. Her eyes spark like she just cracked the perfect answer. She blurts out a name and says it's a super old word from the ancient tongue, one that basically means artisans, and yeah, it totally fits, or at least that's what it seems like. Anne slams the paperwork onto the counter and tells them the official procedures are finally done, right on the path to victory. Ryuji grabs her gratitude and blurts, "Thank you for all your help." Then he winces, apologizing for how messy and complicated everything got for her today. "Sorry," he says, and his words trail off. He just grins, shrugs it off like it's nothing, and then, shocking them, thanks them for the huge help they've given the town. Anne points out that seeing the guild members like this might be exactly what Southstead needs to claw back its old energy, and Lean grins, saying she's over the moon to hear that. As soon as the room flips and everyone starts worshipping them like the heroes who just saved the city, shouts erupt from every corner. People swear they're counting on the duo from now on. So Anne flashes them one final warm smile and tells them the guild is banking hard on whatever they choose to do next. It's obvious those two from Altena have already carved out a massive name for themselves, standing there like they own the whole place. Like they're finally ready to blow up the world together as a real team. Once they're out the door, Ryuji calls it and asks, "All right, what's the game plan for tomorrow?" Lean cuts in, insisting she's got to stock up on ingredients ASAP, and Ryuji nods and says they'll hit the market first thing in the morning. Then a sudden, earth-shaking scream cuts him off. A girl suddenly materializes out of thin air, points straight at them, and screams that she finally found him. Ryuji doesn't even flinch. He just strolls up to Minori, smiles, and tells her she did an amazing job making it through that brutal long trip to reach them. Minori is not letting that slide. She snaps right away, furious that he just dropped a letter and disappeared without a word to anyone. Ryuji shoots back, asking where Suzu is and whether she stayed with Minori, but Minori insists Suzu's got a few things to take care of, and she'll catch up with them later. Minori snaps the clues into place, and suddenly realizes the alchemist Ryuji described in his letter was actually Lane. Ryuji's jaw drops. He can't believe they're really connected, so Lean quickly reveals the truth. They'd teamed up on a quest back then. Lean points out how everything flipped the moment Marie slid into that top-tier guild, and Minori admits that deep down, she had a horrible feeling about the whole mess. Minori tells her it sounds like she's been through the ringer, but Lean just laughs it off like none of it matters anymore. She beams and tells everyone she's doing great now. She's finally locked in on a new goal, and it's all thanks to Ryuji stepping up to help her. Minori just stares at her and goes, "Oh, I get it," clocking the brand new tension between them as she abruptly jolts back to a memory. There's something she was supposed to tell her brother earlier. She tells him, "Since I hit town, I straight up ran into a few other folks who were also searching for you." Right at that moment, two adventurers burst in, and Minori's stomach drops as she realizes they're the same guys who were getting jumped in the forest. Lady Sesai steps up in front of everyone and kicks things off by blurting out a sincere apology for showing up out of nowhere. Ryuji tells her it's no big deal, but you can see the curiosity burning in his eyes. What kind of business dragged her all the way here? Diet leans in and calls her Lady Sesai to grab her attention, and she just calmly agrees like, yep, he's right. Staring at Ryuji in line, she blurts out that she's sorry. She acted rude the other day and didn't even introduce herself right. She drops a massive bombshell, then calmly explains she's actually Quisily Rayfise, the first princess of the kingdom. The vibe turns deadly serious when she drops, I'm here to ask for a personal favor, and it blindsides them completely. Then the crew sprints straight to the fields to start hauling in the exact materials they need for the job. Ryuji calls her Setsu and tells her, straight up, she could have just stayed back and let them handle the manual labor. She insists that as the client, she refuses to sit back and let everyone else do the work. Then Lena suddenly bursts in, shouting that she found something. A little girl hoists an enormous basket packed with plants, practically bouncing with excitement like she's just scored the biggest prize ever. Ryuji leans in and tells Minori her haul is seriously impressive, then immediately drops the warning, keep your voice down, because this whole secret business is for the princess. The girl nods and agrees to stay silent, and Ryuji and Lean exchange this quick smile, like, all right, it's showtime. The story snaps back inside the workshop, dead quiet all around, with the library and stairs looming in the silence. A steaming fresh cup of tea lands on the table, and the host lines in, practically urging the guest to dive right in and enjoy every sip. Setsu gives a quick thank you, insists she's got to stay incognito so they should all just chill, and Ryuji nods politely and takes her up on it. Lean straightens up her notes and calls her Lady Tsetsi, while Ryuji blurts out, so, can we finally dig into the details of your request? Deet lunges in to explain everything to Ryuji, but Setsu cuts him off before he can even speak. She demands that since it's her personal request, she gets to say it herself, so Deet has no choice but to nod along. Her smile drops hard. She tells the whole group, listen, I need to say something critical right from the start. She locks eyes with them, voice like steel, and orders them to never let a single word of what she's about to say slip to anyone, ever. Ryuji locks eyes with her and vows, I've got this, so he whips around to the girls and asks if they're cool with it. It's too minor, he says, but I'll give it my all, and Lean doesn't even hesitate as she agrees on the spot. Setsi snaps that the public has no clue yet, because just a few days ago, something happened that involved her. Ryuji's her father. He leans in and asks if she means the king himself, and she nods, confirming that's exactly who she's talking about. Her smile fades instantly as she blurts that her father is stuck in bed right now, crushed by this sickness. She goes on to say that he just suddenly collapsed from it, like his body gave out of nowhere, which makes. Rian catches on fast, blurts out whether this whole thing is just a trap to get medicine from Ryuji, and when Ryuji nods, Rian lets it click. That's exactly what's going on. Setsi swears the capital even brought in a top doctor to examine him, but no matter what they tried, they still couldn't crack what illness was eating him. That's when it hit her. She remembered the two of them and sprinted to find them, begging for help. So Ryuji finally clocks everything, stares her down, and tells her he understands exactly what they're up against. Ryuji shoots his hand up to silence the room for a beat, then he calls out to Tetsetsu because Lean feels like she doesn't even deserve all that praise, and more importantly, she refuses the job unless she knows the symptoms, so she blurts out, I'm sorry. So she leans in and demands that Setsi lay out the whole truth about the king, every detail, no skipping a thing. Setsi stares into her tea, then starts replaying every wild thing that's happened so far. As Lean listened, that look snapped across her face, like something finally clicked into place. Ryuji's face is all business, while Minori just stares there, totally lost, like she can't even catch up to what's going on in their heads. She finally asks if the two of them managed to piece it together, and Ryuji just silently nods at her, like he already knew what was coming before. Or he spun back to Tsetsi, ready to break the truth. Her father wasn't sick at all. Setsi practically leaps out of her seat, eyes wide as she blurts, what on earth are you trying to say? So Ryuji bluntly shuts it down. Everything she's been describing screams curse, not some run-of-the-mill illness. Ryuji tells her that if she dragged her father to a priest or an adventurer, they would have caught the truth right away. But for an ordinary doctor, a case like this is basically a medical nightmare to get right. Setsi is totally rocked by the news, and she can barely choke out a curse while it all crashes into her. She blurts out an apology the second they land, freaking out about how she rushed them and totally wasted their time. Then she realizes she has to get to the church, but Lean slams the brakes right there, Ryuji springs to his feet and tells Tetsu that if it's just a curse he needs broken, his own enchantment magic has it handled. Setsu just gapes at him, lost and baffled, because she can't see how enchantment magic is even supposed to untangle that curse. Ryuji stays icy calm and tells everyone the king's curse isn't nearly as deadly as it sounds. So as long as they've got a dispel magic stone, they can erase it in a snap. He admits he's got 0 stones on him right now, so he slams himself down and starts forging a whole new batch. He stares at him with hope in one eye and worry in the other, then blurts out, "How long is this gonna take to get done?" Ryuji scans the local plants and grins, saying he can probably grab every ingredient he needs from the forest out back. So he begs Setsu to wait until tomorrow, and she goes silent, her fist tightening in her dress as her emotions fight to break free. She meets his gaze, tells him she gets it, and urges him to go on with the plan, no stopping now. After that, the whole crew sets off to start gathering, and Ryuji calls out to Renetta, demanding she checks how things look on her end. And she smiles right back, telling him she's got a really good feeling about this place too. She spots those board droppings tucked in the bushes and blurts out they can only belong to a slender one. Or Setsu's blown away, staring at Renette like, "Wait, you can really spot a monster just from that." And Ryuji only chuckles it off like, "That's just an elf's nose for you." Renee grimaces and says she'd rather not sniff it, period, because a nose this sharp is a gift that slices both ways. Setsu's curiosity goes full throttle, and she demands to know what kind of creature a slender boar really is. So Ryuji breaks it down. Yeah, they're huge, but they're weirdly thin and they lurk in the dark. Usually not a major threat, but you better keep your guard up. Lana nods with the group, warns that the boars could still be lurking nearby, and tells everyone to keep their eyes sharp as they push forward. Ryuji stands guard beside a cart packed with supplies, then scans the hall and demands to know if they've finally got enough. Nen gives a quick nod and says it looks perfect, especially since they stocked up on extras, so they won't be scraping the bottom for a long time. Diet spots a few of the extra things they snagged, and demands to know if that clay they collected earlier has a purpose too. And then he spills the truth. This isn't just some magical trick, it's a key ingredient in top-tier medicine, shattering him with the realization that this alchemy game goes way deeper. Renee leaps in and says, "Sure, alchemy loves it, but even regular doctors swear by it, because it calms a wrecked stomach fast." The diet kid hears that and immediately thinks, "That's the perfect cure for my problems, no doubt about it." He chimes in like, he's always whining that his stomach hurts anyway, so let him try it. Diet reluctantly nods because, yeah, she's got a point, while Ryuji just stands there, lost in the thought of how brutal Dietrich's life is. Lana locks eyes with Ryuji and tells him he's got to be out of his mind, but when he asks if she's serious, his voice comes out drained and worn out. Lean slams the brakes out of nowhere, and everyone's left staring in panic as she blurts, "Hold on, just a second." Ryuji fires back, "What's happening?" And she admits she can smell beasts and blood right nearby. She jabs a finger toward the tall grass and tells him straight up, whatever she's picking up on the air is crawling out of those bushes, way down in the weeds. The group spots a dead animal sprawled on the ground, and someone blurts, "Is this one of those slender boars people keep talking about?" Lean stares at the corpse and nods. Yeah, it's a carcass, but the way it died reeks of something wrong, something that just doesn't add up. They stare at the bruises and marks, and it's instantly clear this wasn't some small attacker. It screams big animal, likely a bear. Lana looks totally rattled at the thought of a bear showing up, and Ryuji insists it's even weirder than it sounds. He glares at the body and snaps out that the boar carcass is way too spotless. No real predator leaves it that clean. Explaining that if a bear truly had killed it, it would have been absolutely devoured, way more than that. Lana stares at him, the truth slams in, and she blurts out, "So does that mean there's something else still out there?" Lean nods along, saying if that predator was still busy chowing down, everything would have gone differently, but Dietrich strides forward and heaves his shield out in front, demanding, "Are we really facing a bear?" The girls gag at what they're seeing, and Lana can't stop herself from screaming at the horrifying sight, right before the moment cuts off. Ryuji just stares, and right there he knows it. This is about to get seriously intense. Because right there, looming like a nightmare, sits a monster so massive it towers over the entire group. Minori doesn't hang back. She charges straight into the fight, slashing her sword at the beast. But when her blade hits it and doesn't even scratch the surface, total disbelief hits. She blurts out that the thing is impossibly tough. From the sidelines, Ryuji stared in disbelief, his mind screaming, how could Minori's hit possibly have missed? Minori realizes that if this were just some ordinary wild animal, she'd rip its arm off in a single shot without even blinking. She refuses to back down beside Ryuji, But in the middle of all this chaos, she can't shake one terrifying thought. What is this monster really up to? Ryuji catches the beast in full view, those glowing eyes, that gem blazing on its chest, and right then it hits him hard that Ryuji realizes this isn't some ordinary predator, so he snaps at Lady Cecil to stay back and rockets forward to protect her. Ryuji stared at the massive shadow and snapped that it was a chimera Kuma, because that meant nothing good was coming. A chimera is basically a wild mashup, different animals fused into one single, living body, and all of it is forged with alchemy, just to jack up their power and turn them into living weapons. Ryuji knows that in any decent country, these monsters are meant to be locked down under ruthless control. But he can't stop thinking, what kind of idiot would let something this deadly slip loose out in the woods like it's nothing? Lady Cecil won't hide. She snaps that she's not just going to stand there while everyone else protects her, so she pivots in close, asking if she can sync her attack with hers, and Lean is completely ready to go. Lean snaps into action, drawing in mana like a storm as her magic charges up, ready to blast clean through that bear. Lady Cecil doesn't hesitate. She yells for her flame arrow to ignite and blast straight into that bear's face. As Lean crackles with lightning, the two of them unleash their spells at the exact same moment. The magic snaps into place, the bear explodes with a massive roar, and Ryuji's sure they just nailed a direct hit. But the moment it hits him, he knows something's off, and it's clear that wasn't even close to enough. The chimera is still standing, because those magical defenses are no joke. Every one of their attacks just bounced off and did absolutely nothing. Ryuji freezes for a split second, eyes racing as he tries to decide what move comes next. Then Lean yells his name, snapping his focus away from the monster for a split second. She tells him she has a real idea, then hesitates, like she's not fully sure she should say it out loud. Ryuji locks eyes with her and tells her to stop hesitating, just go for it and give it a shot. Ryuji snaps his head to Dietrich and asks if he can snag him some time for an enchantment. Then the guy immediately tells Ryuji to hand it all to him. Lady Cecil steps up and barks orders to Minori aim for the monster's back legs to stop it from moving, while Lean shoots back that she's ready to act fast. Ryuji wraps up his work, declares the sharpness enchantment is ready, and fires up the team. I'm counting on you to take it from here. Minori rockets into the chaos, yelling to Dietrich that she's taking over for the very next attack, and she screams and swings her blade straight for the chimera's legs. The monster gets blindsided, lets out a strange, furious roar, and the enchanted blade bites deep into its hide, striking the massive beast hard enough to make it stumble and scramble, barely staying upright while it fought to keep its balance. When Ryuji spots the opening, he blurts out to Ren and flicks her a special item, right then and there, for their next move. Lean snags it cleanly, flashes Ryuji a quick thanks, and then she's gone to work, and she immediately blasts out, yelling at Minori and Dietrich to get out of the way, right now. She throws her secret weapon, whirlwind-swathed Molotov, and it detonates, sealing the chimera inside a raging, massive storm of flames. Dietrich and Lady Cess recoiled in shock as the blast tore through the air. Then Dietrich blurted, "What the heck was that power?" Because both of them stood there, totally stunned. While Ruddy reels from that explosive whirlwind he unleashed before, he admits he pulled his punches back then to keep everyone safe. But this time, Lane tells them the spell on the one she just hurled wasn't normal. It was built to blow up as huge as humanly possible. Ryuji stared at the smoke, jaw tight, convinced that even if it didn't fully drop the monster, that blast should have at least frozen it in its tracks. So he yanks out a magic sealing stone and declares that this next move is the one that ends it, the finisher. Suddenly, a fat glob of slime boils up and snaps around the monster's head, leaving the beast panicking and choking as it tries to breathe. Lady Cess stares in disbelief and blurts out, "Wait, are you seriously a slime?" And line. Rin yells that Ryuji showed her one of those stones before, and she remembers him warning that it could trap monsters inside a slime just like that. Ryuji tells Lean that was a brilliant move, because no matter how hard a monster can soak up physical hits or magic. Once their nose and mouth are covered, it's done. This massive beast collapses on the ground, totally defeated. Ryuji stares at the magic core they just yanked free, and the moment his eyes lock on it, he can't help wondering what kind of monster they were dealing with. I couldn't shake the feeling that some random alchemist cobbled it together, or someone straight up got their hands on a synthetic core. And then he risked everything by testing it on a bear to see if it actually worked. Ryuji snaps at the group that they have to report all of this to the guild, because what happens next can't wait, but it hits him, he's got to lock in and forge the Dispel Stone, because there's zero time for a trip there, leaving him groaning while Lean just erupts into laughter at how wrecked he looks. Lean asks if she should just take off instead, since she knows he's desperate to slam that stone finished ASAP, pointing out that she'll have to drop off her transfer notice in Southstead anyway, so she might as well grab Adaman, handle the report, and get it done. Ryuji leans in and tells her he's sorry for the mess he caused, then admits that if she helps him, it would be a huge lifeline. While Dietrich snaps his attention back to Lady Tsetsi, he starts plotting their next move. Ryuji shoots an idea, dump the bear carcass for Minori to handle, and sprint back to the workshop. Once we're back at the house, we're starting those magic stones on the spot, no wasting time. Lean scans every piece of gear, then tells Ryuji it's all locked in, every last prep is finally finished. Ryuji gives a quick nod and says they're good to go, then leans in and asks if she's ready to dive straight into it. Now it's finally time. The alchemist and the enchanter are about to team up. He lifts a massive stone high in the air and declares this is the exact moment to prove they're true craftsmen. The workshop goes dead silent as they hunch down, ready to start putting in the real work. Ryuji double-checked the supplies, grinned, and said they had more than enough material, so this thing would be done by tonight. Night finally drops in and he turns to Ryani like, all right, this is it. It's officially time. Let them see what we can really do. Lean leans in, grins like she's about to set the world on fire, and tells him she's ready to go. Thor squints at the rock dangling in Ryuji's hand, then fires back, asking if that's really the same stone they used to forge magic stones, and Ryuji nods and lays it out. This raw stuff, it's a null magic stone. He launches into the plan, insisting you need a special knife to carve the blank stone out. Then you blast it with heat and add a catalyst until the power floods every inch of it. Next, they've got to rub it down with a wet stone, shaving and shaping until the rock's rough edges finally fall into place. Before he finished the job, he polished every last edge until the whole thing shined with pure, eye-catching magic. Ryuji smirks and says that once you complete every single step, you unlock a truly terrifyingly powerful magic stone. Thor leans in and listens hard, saying he's got every word Ryuji's dropping. Then he stops. But even after the cutting's finished, he still can't shake one burning question: how the enchantment works. He asked whether the polishing stage even mattered, since the stone should already be ready after the cutting and shaping were done. Ryuji warns that if you skip polishing the stone at the very end, it'll never hit its full potential. He insists every single step is what forges the stone's perfection, so they'd better not risk one single corner during the whole process. And it hits harder when the stone is meant to save lives, like the Dispel magic stone he's crafting right now. That's where an enchanter's real power finally shows. No hiding, no faking, just pure skill. He tells you artisans never stop driving themselves, always chasing the question, how much raw power can they cram into a single stone? Until he finally slams the last piece of prep into place and decides it's all clear to roll. Next, he spreads the catalyst plants and the cut stone across a heat-resistant dish and tells Thor that he only needs to warm this spot a little, and the reaction will kick off. The moment the magic latches on, the leaves wither fast as the stone gulps down all that raw energy. Thor stares in pure disbelief, jabbing his finger and shouting that the catalyst plant has already shriveled to dust. Ryuji stared at the stone and grinned. We filled it with power, and now it was time to cut, carve, and polish it until it was perfect. With everything settled, he whips his focus straight to Line. He tells her he'll cast the enchantment on the bottle at the very end. Then he leans in and begs her to warn him the second the potion is finally done. Lean flashes a confident smile and says she's got it, ready to jump straight into her part of the job. Ryuji strides over to check on her station, and when he asks what she's making, Rina peeks up from her tools and grins. She's brewing a stamina recovery potion. She says even if that magic stone shatters the king's curse, it won't fix the brutal exhaustion and constant weakness that have been weighing him down for ages. She's convinced the right real medicine is exactly what he needs to recover from all that brutal physical strain. And Lady Sesai spots the ingredients and snaps. This isn't just anything. It looks like a brutal medicine made from nearly grass. Ryuji locks onto the name, then blurts out, "Wait, are you talking about that herb everyone swears boosts nourishment and vitality?" Lean nods like he just proved a point, then cracks into her recipe, showing exactly how she grinds the herb into a fine powder, stirs it into distilled water, and ends by straining every last bit out. Lean breaks it down. She'll use alchemy to tweak the liquid she just strained, and if she distills it at the perfect temperature, the stamina potion will be ready. Ryuji drops that it's just herbs, and the fact that he's even heard of it makes the whole thing feel way safer. Lady Sessa jumps in to back her up, saying people even brew those same herbs into tea sometimes. Ryuji breaks the news that the next steps are gonna take forever, for him and for Lane. Then he asks if everyone can just chill with him and wait. Lady Sessa tells him to drop it. She says they're the ones begging for the favor, but Ryuji fires back, grinning that he's crazy excited to witness a real master at work. Once they reach their spots, Lady Sessa whips her gaze back and forth between both of them. She lowered her head a little and told them, straight up, that she's really counting on them to pull this off. Ryuji and Lean lock eyes with her, grin like it's already handled, and tell her to hand it all to them. Then the next thing happens and everything escalates. Then the two of them jump right in. Ryuji carefully molds the magic stone into his machine, while Lean watches her chemistry like a hawk. Both of them stay razor-focused. Ryuji stares down the stone, while Line guards the brewing setup, making sure her potion stays flawless. That brutal, drawn-out grind is finally done. Everything's official now, fully complete. Lean flashes a grin at Ryuji, praising him for some seriously great work today, but then he pauses like something about to go down. But she won't let it go. She leans in and asks how the potions are coming, and Ryuji tells her they're basically finished. The only thing left now is for her to add the enchantment to the bottle. Ryuji nods, grins like he's got it all figured out, and tells Lean she absolutely crushed it. Lean shrugs it off like it's nothing, and Ryuji immediately tells her that's exactly the kind of reassurance he needed. Ryuji spins back to the others and blurts out his thanks for their patience. Lady sees his eyes widening in shock, and Diet immediately steps forward like, so the job's really done. Ryuji lifts a tiny chest high with a confident grin, basically saying, yep, this came out perfect. Lady Sessite leans in close, eyes locked on the Dispel magic stone, and she blurts out, stunned by how breathtakingly beautiful it is. Diet just stands there, grinning like he's fully on board, as if that stone is the best thing he's ever seen. This time, the Dispel magic stone has been forged into a mind-bending 58-faceted polyhedron. Ryuji strides over and breaks it down. Symmetry and optical illusion are the reason. The design is insane. This stone drinks in the light like it was made for it, and he tells you he shaped it to make magic stones hit their absolute best. Then, standing by the window, he swears the stone's glow will help. He promises it will cleanse the Majesty's curse, no question. He finally breaks it all down, then ends the whole talk by laying out the do's and don'ts, exactly how to use it safely. It's all oddly simple. Just pour a blast of magic into the stone, and just like that, it starts working. Lady leans in and I nod like, yeah, I get it. I understand how it works. Ryuji cuts in and pulls out the medicine, insisting it'll work perfectly if they take it by mouth. Lean breaks in and says, Ryuji hooked it up with a recovery enchantment. Now the medicine hits harder, and that means you can. She can personally swear this batch will crush the usual stuff in both results and speed. Lady Sessai's eyes glimmer with relief, and she can't stop thanking them, again and again, for everything they've done. As the sun sinks, Lane swings his gaze to the group and asks, point blank, if they're cool with staying over again. He's like, it's getting way too late. There's no telling if those bandits are about to switch tactics. Lady Sess mulls it over, then nods and accepts the offer, until the moment they finally settle in, and boom, someone shouts Ryuji's name. Minori nearly crumples against the doorframe, eyes wide like she clawed her way here through pure, unfiltered hell. Lean and the others just froze in stunned silence, and even Lane could barely force out a word. The girl stumbles into the room, trembling as she thrusts a piece of paper into the air. Ryuji snatches it from her, frowning in confusion, and blurts out if it's some kind of letter, while Minori locks eyes on the paper, she can't help but wonder, does that handwriting really belong to Suzu? The note is a chaotic mess, frantic scribbles screaming, help me, and those words hit so hard they'll make anyone's blood turn icy. A horse-drawn carriage barrels down the road, hurling up dust as the tension spikes and the stakes turn brutal. Minori is curled up on the floor in a shattered mess, sobbing that it's her fault. She should have waited to go with Suzu instead of. Before he could leave her behind, Lean rushes in and tries to steady her, telling her she doesn't have to carry the blame for how everything turned out. But Ryuji just stands there, staring, caught in the thought that Minori has been trapped like this since last night, and he realizes the real trouble goes back way further, because it's his own choice to abandon those two and bolt out of the city in the first place. So, if anyone's to blame for this disaster, it's him. He's the one who needs to take the heat for it. He's locked in on what's happening, and he can't stop thinking about how insanely talented and battle-tested all three of them are, surviving wave after wave. So there's no way he can think they're anything less than. It's totally fine on its own, but then he can't shake the thought that he was way too naive, because right then, something's about to go down. Then it snaps into his head. Minori was probably thinking the same thing too, trusting in their power just as fiercely as he was. And that's why she finally decided it was fine for them to split up. Now that we're looking back at it, it's crystal clear that that letter is a total disaster. Whatever's happening has officially blown past anything they were ready for. Suzu's letter pours in, and when Ryuji stares at it, the apology hits hard, because every single clue screams that things are far worse than they ever imagined. He glances at Minori, shattered, completely crushed, and he knows she understands the danger too, which is exactly why that guilt is eating her alive. Because they have no clue what's really happening to Suzu, Ryuji snaps up and shouts at the group to move. Right now, they have to get out immediately. A letter came in from Bechmer, and Ryuji can't shake the hope that Suzu is still out there, somewhere in that town. Ryuji suddenly winces at what he did earlier. Everything moved so fast that only now does he realize he was way too rude to Lady Sessa. Lady Sessa takes it in stride. She tells him, if it's an emergency, don't worry about me, just go. She suggests they snag a couple horses to speed everything up, but Ryuji admits they can't ride a lick, so they'll just snatch the first carriage they see come morning. Lady Sessa gives him a sharp nod, slips her hand into her cloak, tells him she gets it, and urges him to take something before he walks out. Ryuji stares at the fancy document she shoves into his hands and demands to know what it is, and she smiles, telling him it's a formal invitation, stamped with the royal seal. She tells him, since we're headed to Bechmer anyway, let's swing by the royal capital of Laudinger on the way back. Lady Sess tells them that once they step into the capital, she'll throw a proper formal event, an official thank you for Ryuji for everything. Then boom, Lean lunges in and snatches Ryuji's attention, catching him totally off guard, because Ryuji is clearly lost in thoughts about the trip, and when he catches the fear on Lane's face and blurts, "What's going on?" She freezes, doesn't say a word at first, then finally. Then she grins, thrusts a wrap she bought right into Ruga's hands, and tells him it's for him. He freezes, realizing the stress has been so bad he completely forgot to eat. After grabbing the food and apologizing for messing up, Ryuji watches as Lean snaps her attention to Minori, checking in to see how she's holding up. Minori stays curled up in the corner of the carriage, eyes lowered, and snaps that she's not hungry at all. Lean clamps down on her, insisting she'll freeze up the moment things get serious. She won't be able to move or fight unless she keeps her strength up. Ryuji steps in behind her and fires off a question. Does Minori remember what their old teacher used to tell them back in the day, right as he reminds her that master always told me, if you want results, you've got to fuel yourself first, eat right, sleep right, and take care of your own body before you chase anything else. Minori finally caves and blurts, I get it. Then she takes a bite, eyes sharp, because she knows something's coming and they've gotta be ready. Minori takes a bite, wrinkles her face and says it's salty, and that's when Ryuji notices her tears. He asks what's going on while she clutches her meal and sits there, barely holding it together. The carriage rattles through the woods, and at last, yes, finally, they're closing in on the very edge of the kingdom of D. Ryuji admits the ride's going to take forever, while Lean leans out the back and mutters that Beckhammer is still miles away. But then out of nowhere, the driver yells at the top of his lungs and yanks the reins with all his might, fighting to slam the horses to a complete stop. The carriage slams to a stop behind a wall of people packed across the road, and the whole crowd erupts in confusion. Everyone blurts, what's going on? And why is the way blocked? Turns out a massive landslide had slammed the mountain pass shut, hurling monstrous boulders everywhere until not a single wagon could squeeze through. The travelers huddle up, whispering that the western mountain just caved in, and they realize there's no way they'll ever get through. Some guy starts yelling that he's got urgent business in D, then demands to know if anyone's actually going to do something about the blockade. Lane blurts that this is a total disaster, then turns to Ryuji and demands to know if they're really going to be forced to hoof it the rest of the way from here. Ryuji snaps that he'd rather she didn't have to do this, but Minori shoots back that they're out of time to just sit and wait for the road to clear. Ryuji stares at that mountain of boulders, jaw tight, and declares they're just going to haul the whole thing away. Lean's face twists in confusion as he asks if Ryuji plans to carry all of this by hand. Then Ryuji snaps back that it's impossible, even with a magic stone. He starts sizing up his own skills, plotting a whole new way to get the job done. As he strides straight toward the landslide, Ryuji fires off to her that he'll move the rocks, so everything's cleared before it gets worse. Back in town, the area around the party's home base feels eerily calm, until the silence shatters. Guy barges into the room and roars for Suzu, while she's just trying to stay seated and lose herself in her book. He's overflowing with annoyance, and straight up demands to know where the hell Minori went. Suzu doesn't even lift her eyes from the page, she just smirks and says she's knee-deep in a grimoire right this second. She snaps that he can't just storm into her room like that, but Guy leans in close, gets right in her face, and orders her, answer the damn questions. Suzu tells Minori that Minori bolted from town yesterday, and even she has no clue where she went, then turns on him and snaps, "So get lost." His face instantly darkens as he snarls that Suzu is a little brat, then demands who the hell she thinks she is. Hits a breaking point, but Suzu refuses to fold. She draws a line in the sand, taunts him for bragging about being a leader, and he and his crew basically barged into her party right off the bat. Like, no permission, no hesitation. And she's not finished yet, because she's about to point out that, while Ryuji and Minori are the only ones holding the whole thing together, constantly cleaning up his messes, she locks eyes with him and tells him straight to the bone, and calls him out for thinking he's too big to fail, demanding a reality check, because that's the final straw in Guy's done with his high and mighty attitude, who finally loses it and swings his arm hard, blasting the book straight out of her hands. Suzu's eyes go wide. She finally clocks what happened, then blurts out that the book was actually borrowed, but before she can even react, he slams through with a brutal strike, connects right across her face, and blood spills instantly. He's totally lost it, and he yanks her up by the collar, slams her face close, calls her a little shit, and warns her not to get cocky with him, leaving. He storms off, leaving Suzu doubled over in pain, her face bruised and bloodied, as she scrambles to survive his sudden violent outburst. Minori finally bursts in, yanks the moment to a stop, and screams at the guy to back off. Like, dude, you really don't have to go this far, and it's obvious she's scared. Terrified out of her mind, she still gets hit with Guy snapping right back that it's all that brat's fault, and he's not done yet. Refuses to cool off for even a second, and insists they take him straight to where Suzu and Minori are already plotting to go. He barges straight into her space and snaps that he hasn't even accepted their resignation. Then Suzu might. He grit his teeth through the pain, forcing the words out, leaving that party is a personal choice, and he can't shut them down. She fires back, telling him she and Minori already dropped their official paperwork at the guild, and that's when Guy starts repeating her words back to her, and the whole moment turns icy, creepy, dark, and unsettling. He snaps his focus to Sean, and Sean stares back like he's totally lost about where any of this is heading. Demand he grab another room in the inn, and keep torturing them until every last secret spills out. He keeps telling Sean to bring them back later, but he's totally lost. He can't even remember how much time has slipped by. Suzu is sealed in total darkness, every door and window locked down tight, so she can't even glimpse a single thing about what's happening outside, and stuck there with her hands tied, everything spirals. Then her stomach growls loud enough to give her away, and she realizes she's getting painfully hungry as the memories slam back in. He clings to Master's old advice, eat up, sleep right, simple rules, but wait. But she's already spiraling, blaming herself for breaking it again. She got way too hooked on her grimoires, forgot to care for herself, and that's the one reason Guy's surprise attack actually landed. She knows that if she'd been at full strength, he never would have caught her off guard, but right now her body is dropping faster and faster, and she knows she's got to strike while she still has the energy to do it. So she whips her eyes to the door, scanning for someone lurking or waiting right on the other side. The world outside is dead silent. She hears nothing at all from the hallway, so that can only mean one thing. This is the one shot she's got while the guards are gone, so she steadies her breath, cranks her mana into place, and summons a spell to copy her own dying body. And just like that, the imitation magic snaps into action. Bright light floods the room as the spell starts forming right in front of them. Suzu knows her clones aren't built for anything that demands finesse, but they're still something. They're skilled enough to pull off a letter. She even slipped one out in secret, and Guy plus the whole party never caught on. Now she's firing off her clone to rush that message straight to Ryuji and Minori, like, right now, no delays. The clone rockets down the hallway, while Suzu lurks in the dark, chewing her nails, praying the plan will actually work. She's painfully aware that it all comes down to one thing. Did her friends actually get that letter? So 10 days rumbled by since the crew first tore out from South Sint. Back at the guild, Emin stands beside Anne, grilling over whether the news he just heard is the real deal. Ryuji barges into the room with Line and the others, shouting that he has to ask Ammon something right now. Anna and the men are completely stunned, because after all this time, he's right there, standing in front of them. But Ryuji cuts off the chatter. He tells them they can catch up later and straight up asks if they know where Suzu is. As Emin hears the name Suzu and realizes the situation is getting heavier by the second, stress hits him hard. He tells Ryuji it's definitely clear something went terribly wrong with her, and Ryuji just freezes on the spot, stunned. Suddenly, Ryuji spots Sean crammed in the crowd, and the moment their eyes meet, he's totally stunned. But the second Sean realizes they've clocked him, panic explodes in his chest. He's convinced he's in full-on deep trouble now. Ryuji blurts his name, and the second he sees how that guy's acting, he knows something is being kept hidden so Emin steps in, grabs Ryuji's attention, and orders him to follow, right now, because he's got a lead on where they might be. He blurts that a fresh tip just landed about their location, and the whole crew barrels down a silent hallway, while, as he spilled the news that someone saw Suzu and Sean slip out of an in-room together, side by side. Emin makes it crystal clear, if there's no proof, the guild stays out of adventurers' mess. At least, that's how it's supposed to work, but the moment the family steps in, everything changes, and he looks like he's about to end this personally, right then and there. Emin tells everyone he got the scoop from the reception desk on how this tip-off works, and he's convinced Sean's tangled in it, because the moment the guy panicked, Emin knew something was off. So Ryuji's locked in, staring down the situation, and he says, "Fine, if that's how it is, then we need to go check it with our own eyes." That's when the plan starts leading. They push the whole crew deeper into the building, until they finally halt at one exact spot. A man stands before a wooden door and blurts that he's almost certain Suzu's trapped in that room, right inside, while He immediately starts pounding the door, shouting Suzu's name, swearing it's him. So what happens next is going to hit hard, but he just locks eyes on that door, goes stone still, and realizes the other side won't answer. No voice, no sign. One of his sisters comes charging down the hall with a key, shouting that she explained everything to the innkeeper, just to get them inside. Then she shoots her key into the lock and twists it tight. Click, doors unseal like magic. Ryuji slams the door wide and yells her name, but the moment they peek inside, everyone goes stone cold silent, because what they see is shocking. Suzu sat alone in the pitch-dark room, completely shattered, like the whole world had just quit on her. The girls sprint to Suzu's side and bombarded her with frantic questions about whether she's okay while leans in for a closer look, exhales in relief and tells everyone, "Don't worry, she's just asleep." Ryuji's sister yanks Suzu into a crushing hug, and the second her arms lock in, she bursts into tears, begging forgiveness for leaving her alone. "I'm so sorry," she chokes out, trailing off as the tears keep falling. The queen admits she's wiped out from everything, then immediately starts feeding herself nutrients to snap back and recover. Suddenly, the door blasts open, and the guy erupts, yelling, "You bastards," as he demands to know why they're barging into his room. Marie stands right behind him, and when she sees Lean there, her whole body goes still. She can barely force out the words, "Lane." Lean whips her head over her shoulder and freezes when Marie is standing right in the doorway, staring back at her. Then, this dude glares at the whole group like pure venom, then snaps at Ryuji, "What the hell are you doing in my room?" and orders him to get the hell out. Ryuji stands there, shoulders drooping and face grim, and mutters the guy's name under his breath like it's a curse. Maybe. Guy smirks, yanks out his gear, and struts like he owns the place. Then he fires back, asking what the heck that look on Ryuji's face is about. He tightens his grip on the sword, breaks into a laugh, and taunts, asking if some third-rate enchanter, Ryuji, really thinks he can pull off a win here. Ryuji shot Guy a sharp look at his size and basically told him, "Yeah, you're still the kind of guy who slaps labels on people just by their rank, and nothing else." He locks eyes with Guy and spits that he's a fake, second-rate fraud, someone who can't finish a single job without magic stones, basically the kind of guy who he struts like he's untouchable just because he's big. Then Ryuji locks eyes with him and snaps, "Stop yapping like a dog." Before fists can fly, Guildmaster Yemen cuts straight between them and shuts it down, right there and then. He shoots Guy a hard, icy look, warning him that if he pulls another stunt like this again, consequences are coming. Then Yemen hits Guy with a total shocker, asking if he really forgot Marie got shoved down to third class. The guy's sweating buckets as he pleads with the guildmaster to hold up, swearing up and down this wasn't his fault. Ryuji crashing in and wrecking everything was the whole cause. Yemen doesn't want to hear a word of it, he snaps. "So how are you even going to explain Suzu's condition?" And Guy's speech dies on the spot. Ryuji's standing there, seconds from snapping, and he tells Yaman not to try to hold him back, because Guy is way past the point where words can fix anything. Yemen lets out a heavy sigh, rubs his forehead, and realizes, staring at Ryuji and Guy, that neither one's buying reason anymore. So he pauses for a split second, then fires off a plan, asking the two of them how they feel about settling this another way. With Guy and Ryuji locking eyes like they want to tear each other apart, the guildmaster barks at both of them, "Take that little fight outside," and he makes it official on the spot, calling it a formal duel, and swears he'll be there the whole time as the witness. Meanwhile, Suzu finally starts to groan and snaps awake, dizzy and out of it as her eyes slowly crack open. Minori blurts out her name, and the relief hits. Len leans in, clothes rustling as he asks if she's finally starting to notice what's going on around her since. Suzu stares at them, totally blank, and when she finally spots Minori, she blurts out, Wait, is that really lean up there? Rena shrugs, yeah, then Minori shoots Suzu a look. Do you remember that job we all worked on together? Suzu nods, I do, but then. But she's still completely clueless, asks where they are right now, and Lean tells her, right at the guild's training grounds. Minori rushes through the whole drama, and the moment she mentions the guildmaster's plan, you realize Ryuji and Guy are about to face off in a duel. Lean watches from the sidelines, already plotting how letting them settle this mess in front of everyone could help the guild lock it down for good. She's counting on that promise. Once it's sworn during an official duel, even a guy like Guy can't back out later, and no one else gets to kick off drama. So she's basically praying Ryuji wins, because she just wants all of this to finally be over, right there in the middle of the training grounds. Yemen steps between them and insists they run through the fight terms one last time, then he breaks it all down. Explains that if Guy wins, Ryuji gets barred from the city, and the girls are forced to stay put at the party. But if Ryuji wins, Guy has to cough up 500 gold for all the chaos he caused, and he's getting slammed down 2 ranks to land in 4th class. Yemen stares them both down and demands to know if they're truly locked in on the rules for this fight. They both snap into agreement at once, eyes locked, tension finally maxed out, and then, when Guy snaps and barrels forward with his shield raised, he screams at Ryuji to beg for his life, right now, while he still has the chance. Ryuji plants his feet, dark rage burning behind his eyes, and tells Guy he's pathetic, then laughs at him for the demotion he's about to get. Emin shot his hand up to grab everyone's attention, because this was it, time to finally kick off the show. The duel bell blasts across the grounds, and as Guy looks like he's about to tear someone apart, Ryuji stays icy calm, swearing he'll end it with nothing but his fists. Emin slashes in one final cut, making absolutely sure they both understand what they're signing up for. The air turns heavy as the rules get hammered in again and again, because if Guy wins, he keeps the girls in his party, and Ryuji is erased for good. But if Ryuji snatches it, Guy's on the hook for 500 gold, and he'll get hit with a brutal demotion that could crush his entire career. But Emin locks eyes with both of them, then fires back, "You sure about these conditions before we start swinging?" He doesn't even blink, he swears it's his end, no mistake, and then he lunges forward to charge. Ryuji stays icy as he nods along to everything, calm as ever, showing zero fear. Guy snapped and started screaming, shouting at Ryuji that if he wanted to beg for mercy, he'd better do it right now, because Ryuji whips his gaze back with a grim, terrifying stare and tells Guy he's pathetic, then snaps that he'd better not cry too hard over his new rank. The signal finally blasts, the duel officially ignites, and Guy rockets into the arena, shield up, sword poised, ready to explode forward. He tears into a huge swing, misses by a mile, and face-splints into the floor, while Ryuji just stands there, watching with zero reaction, like this is the most boring thing in the world while Guy snaps, losing his temper, and starts shouting at Ryuji, calling him a little brat, and demanding he stop bolting away like a coward. Ryuji just shuts him down on the spot, casual as anything, pointing out that he's definitely not about to get slashed by a sword, because that would actually hurt. Then he starts talking down to him, slamming Guy's movements as a total mess, and insisting he should learn from Minori instead. Rage boils in his veins over that insult. He clicks his tongue and snaps that he truly can't stand Ryuji. But the second the stakes get mentioned, the crowd explodes in noise. Everyone is stunned that a whopping 500 gold coins are on the line. People are whispering like it's insane. This kind of money means you can live like an absolute king for a whole year. Then Guy snaps at Emin, roaring that there's no way he's really walking around with that much cash. Ryuji says he figured it out, then glances at the rest of the party and bluntly asks if they've got the money to pay. Ryuji calls her out, saying Marie's probably buried under a mountain of savings, and Marie starts panicking on the spot, yelling at him to wait a second, because she's not about to do that. He totally loses it and snaps at her to shut up, then hammers the point. If he's winning, he's right, so she should just hand it over. Emin steps in, grabs the moment, and tells him to hold on, then basically tells the guy, show some class, because if he wants to borrow it, he better ask properly. She warned him that if he blew the deal, Emin wouldn't even count that cash as his for the bet. Then he flat out tells Guy, if you can't keep Ryuji's rules, the whole arrangement is dead, and your demands are garbage. Guy snaps to the fact he's trapped, then calls to his teammates, drops his head, and begs them to loan him the money. Sean's frozen in shock, then Marie caves in and blurts that she'll do it. She makes him promise he'd better win for the cash, and the guy who's getting paid can't stop muttering to himself about how absolutely brutal this is. He snaps back into a fighting stance and growls at himself. No way he's losing to some puny enchanter like Ryuji. Ryuji stares as the whole thing unfolds, grinning because Guy totally bit the trap and snapped exactly how he planned. So all that effort to push for reparations and ruthless penalties finally feels worth it, especially since he finally realizes it's time to cut the jokes, because this is where everything gets serious. He kicks off his chant, begging a flame to blast through the guy right in front of him and flare like a beacon. Then his fire arrow spell fully ignites, but the guy just stands his ground, and he lets the flames crash into his shield like it's nothing. Ryuji watches him like a hawk, and it freaks him out, because when that spell landed, it felt like it met zero real resistance. Guy just shrugs and laughs it off, then fires back at Ryuji, like, "You really thought some weak little magic would actually do anything to me." He fires up the trash talk again, hammering Ryuji with the same truth. No matter how hard he pushes, he's still just a weak enchanter, and tells him he's got a big mouth for a guy who still moves as slow as he always has. Ryuji doesn't look fazed at all. He just flashes a small smile and tells Guy to ditch that heavy, armor-plated weight. Guy clicks his tongue, clearly fuming at the suggestion, while the tension between them keeps snapping tighter and tighter. Guy loses control. He snaps at Ryuji to shut up and swings his sword with everything he's got. But Ryuji can't stop staring at his sublimation stone, convinced it's the one thing that keeps giving him this boost. The guy just scoffs back, sneering, "So that's what you call your big shot? That's all you've got?" So Ryuji kicks off a fresh chant, yanking mana from the air until it condenses into a blazing bolt of lightning meant to smash the swordsman. He finally lets the lightning fly, and boom, the entire area detonates in a blinding, earth-shaking blast that guy just barrels forward, screaming at the top of his lungs, smashing through the smoke to slam the distance shut. Ryuji lets out a weary sigh because when the spell lands, there's zero resistance, just like it did when his fire arrows hit. A gut punch hits him, and he instantly knows that Guy's setting a trap. That's the trick he's about to pull, which is why he tells the truth to force his way out, then snaps his appraisal skill on and breaks down exactly what's happening. A giant screen of buzzing data and status bars erupts over Guy, spilling every secret he's been hiding right in front of Ryuji. Ryuji eyes Guy's gear and freezes, because aside from that sword, the guy's got zero magic equipment on him, which means he isn't pulling any of this off by himself, and then it clicks Marie is the one sabotaging his magic the whole damn time. So he locks eyes with the guy and bluntly demands to know if he's using anti-magic to cheat. Guy doesn't know what to say at all. He just stands there drenched in sweat, looking completely wrecked, while the crowd stares without a clue. Marie crouches nearby, her back lit up by a glowing device. Emin steps in, squares up to Guy, and calls him out, demanding to know if he really went and ruined a sacred duel by playing dirty like that. Guy snaps completely, spiraling into panic and screaming that Ryuji's just cooking up lies to ruin his name. But Ryuji doesn't even blink. He shrugs it off to M, says it's all good, and pushes them to hurry back into the fight. He blurts out Guy's name one final time as he braces to move, and before Guy can even blink, Ryuji barrels into his space, grabs him by the collar, and fires off a furious question. Did he really have to cheat that badly just to knock down someone he's calling a total loser? Ryuji slammed his Guy so hard he choked on impact. Staring Guy straight in the eye, he snaps that without those buffs, he's not even second class. He keeps pressing forward, hurling insults at Guy, and calling him a paper tiger with a huge ego, while the guy's mind starts to spiral. He can't stop panicking over how Ryuji has enough power to shove him back. He's sweating bullets, staring at those 10 gold coins, knowing he's about to get knocked down 2 full ranks, but he keeps telling himself that if he can just climb to the top rank, that kind of money will be easy to snatch back. Guy snaps and refuses to swallow this demotion, so he flips the script, rockets into the argument, and yells that Ryuji is the real cheater. He screams that it's impossible. A useless enchanter who supposedly can't fight should not be this strong, and Ryuji decides it's finally time to set Guy straight, ripping into him and telling him he's been getting it wrong for ages. The guy starts screaming that he's the enchanter built for the backline, but Ryuji shuts him down fast. He only told him not to expect him to fight like a mage. He locks eyes with the guy and declares, loud and clear, "I never said I couldn't fight. Not even once." Ryuji leans in and says it's actually dead simple. When amateurs mess around at a professional level, they just throw the whole fight off. So yeah, turning him into the party's dedicated support made the most sense, hands down. And he tells Guy there's no way he should even have to think, because the truth is obvious. He basically says, all Guy ever saw me do was play support. And he just kept assuming he was weak trash the whole time. Guy erupts in a scream as Ryuji whips his sword around, slam, sending him flying across the room. And the moment Guy smacks the floor hard, Sean freezes, totally stunned, completely speechless. Everything turns into chaos when a massive smoke bomb detonates out of nowhere, blasting the whole room into thick haze and leaving everyone scrambling, totally blindsided. A thick white haze swallows the whole place, and the others burst into coughing fits, yelling, "What the hell is happening?" Ryuji stands there stone calm in the chaos, staring at the smoke like, is this just another one of Marie's irritating little tricks? Then it clicks, there's no way something this cheap fits her, and he knows a grimy smokescreen move is totally a Sean kind of play. Right out of the mist, Guy explodes forward, eyes wild, totally unhinged, as he roars Ryuji's name and orders him to die. He winds up for one giant swing that screams through the air, but Ryuji just glances back like it's nothing at all. They slam into each other, but Ryuji's lightning quick. He smashes straight through the strike, forcing it to stop cold. Guy's blade snapped clean in two, so hard the guy froze, wide-eyed, as the tip of his sword went flying off into the air. Before Ryuji can even register that his weapon is wrecked, he whips around and rockets straight at his target. Guy eats a devastating fist square on the jaw, and the impact knocks the air out of him. He makes a brutal choke-up sound as he gets completely leveled. The fight slams to a stop when an announcement hits, Ryuji's the winner. Then the loser just crumples onto the ground, completely wiped out and out of the match. Everyone stares at the wreckage. Then Suzu yells for Ryuji as Minori and Lean crowd in, eyes locked on him. He drops to his knees to check on her, then blurts out an apology to Suzu, swearing he never should have left her behind in the first place. But she tilts her head up at him and reassures him, it's okay, because she was the one who chose to split up from Minori after everything went down. Ryuji flashes her a gentle smile and tells her, don't worry about that right now. Lean looked completely stunned, blurting out whether that insane strength that shattered the sword and the kick that followed came from some kind of magic stone. Ryuji nods and admits it. He's been using the Fural Stone, the very same one he used all the way back during that deadly landslide. He raises the crystal high and tells you point-blank that this exact magic stone is why he could pull off those moves earlier. But here's the catch, you've gotta have empty hands to use it. And if you do, it slams you with an insane boost to your physical stats. Turns out it's not just any stone, it's a super rare gift, packed with Fural's divine protection, one of the ancient war gods. Ryuji glances over his past and brings up the purest stone he used before, saying it worked in a way that felt just like this. These stones don't just look wild, they wreck the soil and demand you go in with empty hands, but the power they spit back is on a whole other plane. Lean stood there completely stunned, staring at the explanation like, if it's got divine protection, how is that even enchantment magic anymore? The minority girl snaps her head toward Guy and shouts his title like he's still the leader. But he's knocked out cold, so Sean slings him over his shoulder and hauls him out fast. With the chaos finally settled, the whole crew huddles on the path as Ryuji starts wrapping everything up. They've barely caught their breath since they slammed through that double paperwork back in Beckhamer. He officially declares the Altena party is formed, and all four of them stand poised and ready to strike, and tells them to find a quiet spot, kick back, and blow off some steam because everyone's absolutely drained. Minori's like, yes, perfect, because they've got to get cleaned up fast before they head straight for the castle. After everything that went down, they step in and run a quick check on Suzu, making sure she's really okay, and Suzu insists she's totally fine, then admits Lane's medicine worked like magic on her. Lane lifts their official invite high and urges everyone to head straight for the castle town. And Ryuji swears it's a solid plan, so the entire group snaps to attention and gets ready to move. They kick into motion for Laudinger, the royal capital of, and don't slow down. A brand new massive stage just opened for them to tear through now that they've come out on top. And after 12 long days since they first left Beckhamer, that brutal trip is finally reaching the finish line. Even Minori can't deny it. She's feeling the heat, wiped out completely from all that relentless walking. Lean keeps her chin up, tells her sister to hang on tight, because they're barely past the halfway point and the finish line is right there. And just like that, she catches sight of the city and lights up, pointing it out with a massive grin. Ryuji's jaw drops the moment they finally push through the last stretch of that brutal journey and reach the end, totally stunned, like they can't believe it. And there it is, Rodinger, the royal capital, towering high with massive white spires that stab straight into the sky. As soon as they walk in, the girls dive into trying on brand new outfits, and Lean grabs Suzushi's sleeve to gush that she looks absolutely adorable. So Suzu finally cracks and admits she wanted to try something new, while Lean just can't stop swooning over her fresh, fancy look. They loiter outside the fitting room, bombarding Minari with questions. How much longer is she gonna take? But Minori snaps at them to hold on, totally rattled, like the skirt's teasing every inch of her, and she's mortified. She finally cracks her eyes open and pokes her head out, clearly drained to the bone, while Ryuji just sits there staring as everyone else stays loud, wild, and full of energy. He whips his head around the shop, and the moment he sees it, he knows it. Someone like him has no place in a place like this. He's standing there, drenched in sweat, feeling completely out of place as women swarm around him in the store. He finally blurts out, "Can I run to another shop alone? They're gonna be ages." Lean shuts down Ryuji's plan to bolt right now, telling him there's absolutely no way he's leaving. And Suzu stomps in with a pout, mad that Ryuji won't lift a finger to help them pick out the clothes they're trying on. Minori stares at him like he's lost in the dark, then snaps that he's a complete blockhead for missing the obvious. Later at the inn, Suzu leans in and tells Ryuji to man up, because he can't afford to get worn out this fast. While Ryuji sits there, steaming over the fact that girls can take forever just to grab a few things, admitting that every second of the meal pressed down on him, so hard it drained the life right out of his body. That shopping trip dragged on for a full 3 hours, and the second Ryuji started complaining, all three girls snapped their focus on him, blaming him for one thing, his lazy feedback that ruined their outfits. Ryuji chugs his beer, seething at how unfair it all is, then Lean casually drops tomorrow's plan right into the moment. She promises the fixes will be finished by morning, so they'd better dress up before they head out for Lady Cease's. Ryuji nods along with the plan, realizing it's the smart move to dress up before they roll up to Lady Cease's place. And back at the table, Suzu leans in, grins, and tells Lean the food is unreal, then insists she has to try it right now which makes Lean grin. Yet Minori's got something else brewing in her head. As he watches, Ryuji realizes the number of women in his life is exploding, and they're all starting to get to him, trying to get so insanely organized that it makes him fear he might not even make it out alive, because he's the only guy left. Then his thoughts get yanked to a stop when he overhears some guys talking about the port in South Stet. Trade has to be fixed so everything goes back to normal, and that snaps Ryuji's attention like a trapdoor. He whips his eyes to the table behind him, trying to catch whether the guy yapping is really a merchant or just pretending. While the man explains they uncovered a massive resource vein in the old burned mine, he also lays out plans for a port that would. It would spark the whole area to life again. Why let such a brilliant mind just sit there and get wasted? At the table, the man won't stop talking. He says Marquis Reichner wants to fix the port, and it's not happening because the king is stuck in full war mode, prepping the Northeast for an invasion scare from Guam. As they rode off, the people in the city just wanted one thing: stop the chaos, and finally sink all their energy into developing the Marquis land. Eavesdropping, Ryuji realizes the mine news has already slipped into almost everyone's ears by now. After wrestling with it in his head, he realizes the real monster in their way isn't the plan at all, it's distribution, which makes those local claims about owning or making mines look like a total disaster. Soon the whole crew rolls up to the palace, and a stern guard slams their papers down, then nods and confirms their introductions. Altena burst out to greet Ryuji, Lane, Suzu, and Minori, then waved them in with a sharp, "Come right in." They tail the guard down the estate's long, arched halls, every step echoing like a countdown. They come barreling into a huge, shirtless guy who demands to know, are they the guests? The guard snaps into a sharp salute, barks out his confirmation as the guard points out that it was Ryuji and Line who cooked up the healing potions, and even crafted the dispel stones to break the curse. The massive guy from before suddenly clocks who they are, and hype hits him like a truck. He introduces himself as George Rashafort Baystain, then casually drops the bombshell that he's the king of the whole nation. The whole crew just stands there, totally locked up, while Suzu barely squeezes out a trembling greeting, stuttering every word. Ryuji fires up his best professional voice and calls himself an enchanter, but the king shrugs him off too. He told everyone to chill, because there was no way they should keep acting so formal with him. He flashes them a small smile and points out that after all of it, they're the ones who really saved his life. But Ryuji just stares down, feeling like it's mission impossible for them to act normal, like the moment they breathe, everything's about to go wrong and stop them from leaving the king just let out a heavy sigh, again and again, begging them to ditch the charade and quit acting so stiff. Suzu just stands there, totally stunned, like the king's kind words are falling on deaf ears, because she can't shake the feeling they're wasted on her. While the minorities break into a cold sweat, Suzu's reminded that none of them have ever had to face a world leader like this before. Ryuji's still drowning in stress, admitting they have zero clue how to act or what the rules even are for a mess like this. But instead of hesitating, he takes the leap and asks the king, right to his face, how he's been feeling lately. King George lets out a sharp grunt and tells them, straight from the heart, that he's got absolute thanks for everything. He's breaking into a grin, because the curse is finally gone, the medicine hit perfectly, and now he's got more energy than his body can possibly survive. He swears that's the exact reason he's been out here grinding day after day with his sword. Right when a knight shouts his name, he finally spots the king's location, and relief hits like a wave. Jorg spun around and told the knight Gotthard, "I made it just in time. Those folks behind the magic stones we were talking about are here," and sleeves locked in on Ryuji and Line, then their faces twisted as the truth snapped into place. Those two were the ones who set the whole thing in motion. Gotthard stands there like a mountain and slams out his full name, then reveals the truth. He's the Grand Master of the Knights. And he says he heard some of his younger recruits were already in their care a while back. Lean's eyes go wide like, "Wait, you know about that." She gets all flustered, tries to brush it off, and insists she only did what felt natural back then. Gotthard won't let it drop. He tells them straight up that between saving the recruits and what they did for the king, they deserve his thanks, and he means it for the whole night. King Georg snaps that they've yapped long enough under the blazing sun, then declares he can't leave his guests stuck just standing there forever. So he summons a guard on the spot and orders him to march everyone straight to the drawing room, and the knight snaps a salute and hurries to do it. While Georg tells them he's sending Setsi over right away, everyone dives into the fancy lounge to wait. Then everything cuts too. Setsi finally bursts in through the door, striding in like she kept everyone waiting forever, and thanking every single one of them for their patience. She flashes a smile and tells them it's been ages since they last met. Then the whole group finally exhales, because they've got a friend with them now. Setsi cranes her neck and asks, "Are you Suzu?" And before the silence can stretch, Ryuji jumps in and proudly introduces her as their youngest sister. Setsi flashes a warm smile at the whole group and tells Suzu she's so relieved. She's genuinely happy Suzu made it back safe, which catches Suzu off guard for a second, but she snaps back fast, regains her voice, and quickly thanks the princess for her kind words. Setsi admits the journey must have wiped everyone out, especially the ones constantly keeping an eye on the group as she sweeps her hand toward the comfy couches, urging them all to finally sit down and breathe easy. Once everyone finally settles in, Setsi grins and says they've got a mountain of things to catch up on, but then she cuts herself off. But she wants to handle business first. She thrusts her hand down, drags out a heavy bag, and tells them the rest of their reward is ready. Ryuji snatches the bag, orders everyone to inspect what's inside, and Lean just freezes, staring at that mountain of gold like her mind can't accept it's actually real. Ryuji forces himself to stay professional, kicking off the conversation by addressing her as Your Highness, with every ounce of respect he can muster, but slams the brakes, staring him dead in the eye, and demands he call her by her name. Ryuji finally gets it. She's not letting the formalities slide, and he caves, calls her Lady Tetsu, and the tension finally loosens. Setsu flashes him this huge, blinding grin and just blurts, "Yes," and Ryuji is left standing there, utterly baffled like, what just happened? Ryuji drops his gaze on the mountain of gold, then points and snaps, "Wait, what's going on?" Because this pile is way bigger than the amount they'd been talking about earlier. Setsi just smirks and tells her, "Yep, I definitely tacked on a little extra," then she reminds him that her first request was just for them to craft a dispel magic stone. That stone ended up working way better than she ever dared to hope. She adds that she's coughing up extra too, because the two of them were honestly kind enough to. They went out of their way to deliver medicine and keep her father's health from slipping. She breaks it down like, these reasons are the real deal, so this extra money isn't just a random bonus. And she honestly thinks that sky-high price is totally fair, because the help they gave her family was nothing short of priceless. Setsi says her dad's been bursting with energy lately, only for that wild spark to turn him into a total handful for everyone around him. Setsi drops her gaze and blurts out that her dad sent a message. He wants to thank them in person, and that's totally separate from the gold reward. She blurts out, sorry for the extra trouble, then insists they head to the audience chamber a little later. As Ryuji stared down at the bag of gold in his hands, disbelief hit, because this money alone was already way more than they ever deserved for the job. Setsi plops down with the group and reassures everyone that what they just pulled off is a massive, life-changing deal, like the kind that only happens once leading to the. Later, the two of them end up in that massive throne room, and the king roars at them to stand tall, own what they did, and wear that pride like a crown. The king towers on his throne and snaps, raise your heads. So Ryuji the enchanter and Lean the alchemist stay on their knees, as the crown steps in and finally calls them out officially. He starts thanking them one by one, shouting out exactly how they helped forge that dispel stone and brew the stamina potion. He basically said the whole situation was a brutal, tangled mess that nearly crushed him. Ryuji blurts out a quick yes, and Lean dips even lower, telling the king that Ryuji's being way too humble about everything. Ryuji glanced down, mortified, because he just face-planted over his own words in front of the king. Lean looks just as wrecked, totally flustered, convinced she just ruined the greeting. But the king doesn't seem bothered at all. He lets them know his daughter already handled the payment, yet he's still determined to personally come over and thank them. Ryuji fights to keep his cool, while the king demands they shout out what they want. If they have any request at all, say it now. The whole crew froze for a beat in the huge, echoing room, staring at the offer like it just hit them in the chest. Setsi grins and confirms that her dad really meant for both of them to come asking for what they wanted. And he just tells them he'll say yes to pretty much any wish they can dream up right this instant. Lean starts spiraling into thoughts, gets completely overwhelmed, blurts that only tiny ideas pop up, and admits she has zero clue what to ask a king. She snaps her gaze to him and asks if Ryuji has any idea, and he turns back with a grim look, saying he does. He straightens up, locks eyes with Lady Seti, and bluntly tells her there's one thing he's been dying to ask for. Setsi listens to Ryuji, nods like she gets it, and tells him she's sure there's no real trouble in asking the king for what he wants. But she still looks a little shaky, trailing her words off like she can't stop wondering how far he's truly ready to take this. Ryuji keeps kneeling and lays it out plain. Inside his head, it all boils down to one thing: how much damage they can truly get done. So he decides to go all in and marches up to them, laying down one sharp, specific request he wants right there on the table. He wastes zero time, straight up tells them his request is all about restoring the port of Southstead in Reichner. And he stares the king straight in the eyes, then finishes by demanding the crown's full support to make it happen. The king's eyes sharpen at the edges, and he lets out a tiny, intrigued breath, soaking in just how massive the kid's request really is. Just then, a sharp grunt erupts from the side of the room, and a man standing near the throne lets his annoyance spill out loud. And it's Gotthard, swearing he never imagined common people would dare to poke their noses into state affairs like this. Ryuji snaps his head toward the comment, a bead of sweat breaking out as he digs his eyes into the stranger. Who is he, and why does he look like he's about to explode? King George shuts Elmer down, snapping that some lessons are meant only for common folk, yet Elmer refuses to fold, firing back that as Prime Minister, he's seeing the world a totally different way. And Ryuji's sweat explodes the moment it clicks. This cranky old man isn't just some nobody. He's the one steering the country's government, and it's totally Prime Minister Elmer von Stern. Ryuji's eyes widen because he just realized he's in way over his head, especially since he marched right up to the government boss and told him his methods are failing, and it was a brutal slap in the face. And it's crystal clear the Prime Minister and King George can't stand each other's viewpoint at all. King George finally breaks the silence by. They shout Ryuji's name, and then the king towers above them on his throne, glaring down like a storm about to break, and tells him straight to his face that he can't give an answer to that request right now, because a call this massive isn't something he can make alone, on his own authority. And Ryuji just shuts his eyes and nods, because he already knew from the start that begging for something this massive was a long shot, so he's not shocked the king can't simply say yes. The king finally nods, then his fist clamps down on the throne's armrest until it starts to creak, and he blurts out. And he locks eyes with Ryuji and tells him, clear as day, that as the king, he must make sure the people's wishes don't just float around, they actually come true. King George locks eyes with Ryuji and makes his vow. He promises to pull every string he can to make that request come true. The group strides away from the throne room, and Ryuji finally exhales like he's been holding his breath for ages, telling everyone that as long as the king stays locked on the southwest, they're home free. As they walk, Ryuji keeps poking at Lean, claiming her nerves got so bad she bit her tongue during the meeting. Lean's face goes nuclear red, and she snaps at him to shut up about it. Gotthard slips right in, praising them like they just saved the day, saying helping out was nothing at all, and Lean shoots him a side-eye, clearly not buying it. Setsi catches them in the hall and declares, "You crushed it today." With total confidence, she's already one step ahead, then she casually drops the best news: dinner's ready for everyone. The tension finally melts as they walk side by side, and someone calls out, "Come on, just relax and enjoy tonight." One of them fires off the question, ready to head out, and the rest nod fast, marching down the hall together. Then the story snaps straight into a dim dungeon. Someone's going berserk, yanking the bars and screaming that they want their things back, because nothing about this makes any sense. Turns out Minori's the one trapped inside, while Suzu stands on the other side of the bars, snapping at her to shut up before she makes everything explode even worse. A guard nearby nods and warns them bluntly. After the chaos they already kicked off, stirring up yet another scene is the very last thing they should do. Lean's eyes go wide with pure terror as the truth finally lands, and when someone says getting executed on the spot for high treason wouldn't be out of the question, it makes the whole room feel like a countdown, making. Suzu sputtered in disbelief at the charge, but Minori wasn't letting it slide. She snapped that there was no way Lean would ever do something like that. She's right there at the bars, and Lean is trying to hold it together. He tells Minori she'll be fine, then pleads with her not to blow this up while Ryuji sits alone in the dark, clocking the whole scheme and realizing he got played to perfection, so he starts firing off questions. Who set him up, and what do they want from dragging him into the dark? By trapping him like this, then, one beat later, he shakes it off, deciding he can freak out about the details later because right now he has to lock in. He snaps his head up with a fierce look and tells them the very first thing, find a way out of here. Then the story snaps back to earlier that night, right after he finishes talking with King Finish, while the moon hangs over the castle towers. And Ryuji finally snags a breath of peace. He flops onto the edge of a massive, fancy bed and lets out this heavy sigh, trying to force everything to make sense. Earlier, the guards herded them down the halls and Dietrich cracked, "Don't worry, there's a room waiting for you in the back wing," before urging the group to get some sleep. Ryuji watches them stride off, and right then it hits him. The moment they're told to rest, trouble's about to explode. Ryuji flops onto the bed, hands laced behind his head, and thinks, yes, I finally knocked everything out that I had to do tonight. He starts thinking, that meeting with the king is a total jackpot. This win gives us a brutal advantage from here on out. When he zooms out and sees the whole picture, he realizes he ended up winning more than he ever gave up. Then it hits him, every bit of trouble he caused the girls crashes back in his mind, and he realizes he has to find a way to make it up to Minori, Suzu, and Lane. He tells himself he'll figure out a way to pay them back later, but right now he can't do anything. He needs to crash and rest. Then snap, a sudden noise from outside yanks him upright, and in the blink of an eye he's wide awake, fully alert. He stares at the window, stunned. Why on earth is he hearing metal smashing together this late at night? The second he locks eyes, everything shifts. He knows this isn't some routine guard patrol. This is something way more serious. He snatches his cloak and rockets out of the room, sprinting straight toward the source of that noise. He bursts in to find the guards tangled in a brutal brawl with a towering hooded monster, and it's already going terribly wrong. Ryuji barrels into the hallway where the fighting's raging, then shouts to the guards that he's come to back them up, right now. The guards look straight up, relieved the second they see him. One even clocks him as someone from Athena, and the other blurts that his help is exactly what they need right this minute. Ryuji wastes zero time. He jams a magic stone into his strike, then hurls a thunderous punch straight into the hooded figure's chest. Even as the hit lands, disaster strikes. Ryuji yanks back and his arm gets sliced open, leaving him reeling in pure shock. He winces as that sharp pain bites back, realizing the guy he just clocked is way tougher than he ever looked. When he looks at the spot he hit, he feels it, hard, solid stone beneath the cloak, and the truth hits him like a punch. This isn't even human. The cloak finally tears apart, and there it is, a gigantic, jagged hulk of rock staring them down, because they're not facing a monster at all, they're up against a golem. The monster hurls a massive stone arm at him, and Ryuji has to duck low and sprint out of the way before it crushes him. He yanks himself back up and blasts the guards with the truth. This thing can only be killed by hunting down its core and wiping it out. He says the core is probably tucked somewhere inside the golem's gut, and the guards instantly lock in. Then they rush in together with a perfectly timed assault. Ryuji scans for a crack in the defenses to smash the core as the guards keep it busy. Then Minori suddenly calls out to him. He just smirks, pure relief flooding his face, because his team finally arrived to back them up in the fight. He rockets onto the monster's back, realizing his usual punches won't land, so he decides he'll have to. He's gotta push harder, so he lunges, grabs the golem, and barks at it to stay down for a moment. He rams a magic stone into its head, and the blast traps it in place. Ryuji gets the golem pinned, then screams for Minori to finish it, aims straight for its stomach. Minori screams back and rockets forward with everything she's got, ready to end this once and for all. She slams down with a monstrous strike, tearing straight through the golem's midsection until they're obliterated. The stone monster is crumpled on the ground, wrecked to the core, and choking in a cloud of smoke. The royal guards are frozen stiff in shock, staring like they can't even process it. The monster is really down. After the fight, Ryuji stands there alone, Then a voice cheers, saying it was impressive, but warns him he's running late. Minori finally steps in with her sword resting on her shoulder, breathless and apologizing for the delay, because getting Lin awake was pure torture. They snap a closer look at that cracked crystal and realize it's a synthetic monocore, forged with alchemy by the monster. Minori stares at the core, and the second she sees it, her eyes widen because it's the same exact nightmare setup as the bear battle from back then. Lin peers into the dark shard and locks in. This is the same exact kind of setup they ran into last time. Suzu strides up to Ryuji and tells him, "I'm done checking the area. I'm pretty sure there wasn't any intruder." She tells him there's not a single scrap of leftover mana leaking out of that building, so the truth is the guard clicks into realization. Those culprits have to be hiding somewhere inside the castle, and Ryuji nods, saying that's exactly what he thinks. They blaze down the hallway toward the room, quizzing whoever they can. Is this really the crime scene? The guard strides them ahead and clocks the four of them, calling out that they're Altana's party members, then pushes them straight into action. Ryuji and the crew are just standing there when a guard suddenly snaps, "You're all under arrest," blaming them for the entire mess. Ryuji's instantly blindsided. He just freezes, eyes wide, staring back in pure shock at the accusation. Chancellor Stern storms in and snaps that the whole thing is just heartbreaking, then reveals he's already seen clean through their little scheme. The crew gets slammed behind bars, and Ryuji fires back at the Chancellor, demanding to know what he's really talking about with these secret motives. Ryuji snaps back that they were snatched with zero explanation, but Stern shuts him down hard, telling him to quit pretending he's some innocent victim. The Chancellor peers through the cell bars and demands to know if they're the culprits behind that massive commotion. He tells her the golem's core was forged in alchemy, and then he points at Len, saying she's the one who built it, while Len can barely even get the words out. Ryuji shouts to him, admitting Lin is an alchemist, then scrambles to explain why that still doesn't make her guilty. He snaps that it's dangerously short-sighted to brand her as the criminal just because of her job. Then one of the guards snaps at him, barking, "Do you even know who you're talking to when you speak to me like that?" The Chancellor snaps at Ryuji to just shut it, because it's already way too late for them to play dumb, especially after his men finally tracked down what they found inside Lin's room from their search, and just as he was about to, he lifts the dark crystal in the air and tells them, "We found a magic core, exactly like the ones that power those golems." Lin and Ryuji both go stone still, eyes bulging as they clock exactly how terrible this looks. And then, Ryuji clenched his teeth, dead certain this was a straight-up setup. There's no way Lin would ever slip a core like that. He flashes back to what Lin told him, that this whole disaster makes alchemists look absolutely terrible. She was straight up relieved that Ryuji was the one hauling that golem along for the job. Ryuji had asked her back then if the real reason was that she couldn't make them herself, but she only smiled and said that. And he flat out insisted that wasn't the real issue, because golems are insanely useful, and they're exactly the kind of help that actually changes people's lives. She lowered her gaze and admitted she just always felt off about the whole idea of stuffing a soul into an object. Lin stared up at the giant stone golem and admitted, yeah, they were useful, but every time she had to make one herself, something about it always felt off to her. Ryuji listened, nodding like, "I totally get you and he's about." And he flashes her a smile, saying it totally makes sense, because for an elf, respecting the laws of nature is everything. He tells her, "Don't hold back. If you're thinking something, say it later too, because we're in this together." Then he shrugs it off. "We'll keep helping each other with the things we just can't do right now," and his words trail off like maybe, which makes Lin lift her gaze to him with a gentle smile, quietly thanking him for always having her back. Until then, everything slips into silence. But back in the present, Ryuji clenches his teeth, because the past is slipping away and they've got zero proof they're innocent right now. Finally, Minori snaps, she can't take it anymore, and explodes into loud shouting, insisting the monocore they found is Lin's. But Ryuji snaps her down fast, orders her to shut up for a minute, and his sisters stare at him in total shock. The Chancellor glares them into silence, saying crimes like this would usually end in the death penalty, but instead, he chooses exile, banishing them from the capital for good. He tells them, "You'll get some of your stuff back later," then slams the point home. Until then, zip it and don't say a word. Just as the Chancellor turns to leave, a voice snaps from the prison shadows, calling his name. Chancellor Elmer strides in front of them, glares down as he's about to rip into the situation, and his next words land like a slap. Ryuji blurts out from the side, asking if the king and princess Cecily truly understand what's happening right here. Summer didn't even blink as she told him, "Of course you'd know." Then the words landed like a punch, Both the king and the prince are furious and deeply disappointed in them, and this is where things go south. Ryuji gets slammed, teeth clenched so hard you can feel the frustration boiling out of him. Then he just says he understands and shoots back a cold, clipped thanks. Later, the group gets shut away, and Ryuji slumps alone in the dark, eyes hollow and drained, while Lean curls up in the corner like she's bracing for the worst. And the prison's suffocating silence finally snaps when Suzu whispers to her older sister. He glanced over, quizzing Suzu if she caught that weird vibe from Ryuji earlier, because he never acts like this. Suzu nods and says the Ryuji they know would never blow up over something that didn't touch his sisters. This is solid proof Lean matters to him more than he admits. Minori. Every smile lingered like a promise. Then she added, Lean's one of our precious friends now too, and that lit a fire in her, because she wasn't about to stay quiet and watch everything end like this. He reaches out to the elf, beckons Lean closer, and pulls them all in together, because now they have to figure out their next move. Minori keeps a tight grip on Lean's hand, insisting she has nothing to be ashamed of because she hasn't done a thing wrong. Then Lean glances back at her, and the heaviness in her chest eases, right as who snaps her focus back on her brother, softly calling his name as she tells the others that if it's Ryuji, he's got a plan for all this chaos. She whips her eyes to him and demands to know exactly what she needs to do. So Ryuji finally lifts his head with a razor-sharp grin, agrees with her, and tells her it's time to break out of this place. He hands Suzu a specific mission, try using her telepathy to contact Lady Sesai. Then she nods, fires back, I've got this, and the moment she takes off. The two sisters pour every ounce of power into forging that link, but even when Lady Sesai can almost feel them, the connection still won't snap into place. Suzu blurts out that some kind of magic barrier is blocking her signal, and Ryuji doesn't even bat an eye. He just says he'd already figured they'd pull a stunt like that. Lean stares at him, baffled. How on earth are they supposed to get a message through a wall like that? Then she pushes the question, what's he doing next? Ryuji just smirks, grinning like he's got the answer, and tells her the real fix is way simpler than she thinks. And then he whips out a huge glowing magic circle, and vows he'll crank up telepathy so hard the barrier finally can't hold it back. Lady Sess and her guard finally crash through to the cell, snapping the lock open and barreling inside. Everyone looks panicked as Sess shoots. Is everyone okay? Ryuji and the others are stuck on the far side of the bars, and when Lady Sesai finally comes for them, he blurts out his thanks, pure relief flooding his voice, like he can finally breathe again because that the rescue actually worked. Sess immediately throws out an apology, saying Suzu filled her in on every detail, but she never imagined it would get this ugly. She's completely baffled. How did this happen right under her nose? She says that normally, some report should have reached her, but she swore the guards were only sticking to their usual routine, staring at the prisoners like it was nothing, clueless about what was really going on, and that's. Ruggy instantly clocked it. Someone's rigging everything from the shadows, and he's dead certain the Prime Minister is the puppet master yanking the strings. He can't stop asking why Leon got picked in the first place, and his mind races back to the Prime Minister, like they might have set Leon up just because she was standing in their way. Ryuji stands there with his arms crossed, blurting his thoughts. Why is it Leon taking all the blame when he's clearly the one painted as the villain? Leon looks completely wiped out from that whole conversation. She tells Ryuji that every time he repeats it, it makes it sound like she's the bad kid. Suzu shoots her brother a hard stare, looks up at him, and blurts out, "So I'm the only one who's actually a bad kid, right?" Ryuji stares in shock as everything finally clicks, and he can't stop wondering, were Lean's alchemy and convenient reasons just a setup to shove them out of the capital? Minori drops her gaze and admits she's been feeling the same way about all of this. Then she tells Ryuji she's almost certain that's exactly what went down, and just as she starts to explain, then Ryuji goes dead silent, and a wild new theory kicks off inside his head, because if this whole thing was really about wiping them out for getting in the way, then everything has to snap back to that dispel magic stone they stumbled on. He's sure that stone and the curse clinging to the king are the heart of the whole disaster. He remembers the exact moment they shattered that curse for Lady Cease, and suddenly it slams into him. They've already tangled with the Prime Minister's plans twice by accident, and now that they've finally slipped back into the royal capital, they're standing in the middle of everything, like a huge roadblock to whatever that guy is plotting next. Ryuji's eyes harden the moment he speaks, realizing the Chancellor just wants them out of the way so they can't touch the king or Lady Cease again. Then he demands to know if their plan is to exile them for good. He whips around to Lady Cease, and she's just as locked in. She nods and says, if the Chancellor really is behind all of this, then it's a dire mess that has to be dealt with right now. She snaps to action on the spot, she tells the group she's calling a meeting with her father, the king, right there in the audience chamber. The story slams into the massive throne room. There's the king, already waiting, and Lady C snaps, warning them the chancellor will show up again, just like he did yesterday, so they'd better be locked and ready. The throne room feels razor-sharp with tension. Elmer just watches as everyone holds their breath, waiting for something to snap. King George leans down from his seat and talks to them. He's already heard every detail from his daughter, and he admits, "You've been through a lot," but then it all snaps into seriousness. He leans in and tells Ryuji and the others that even with a massive favor owed, he can't just trust promises without proof. So he makes it crystal clear. If they want to move forward, they've got to clear their names, right then, right there. The king brings up how he bolted out last night the second he heard the fighting, remembering his guards clashing with a suspicious guy just as Ryuji's crew crashed into the brawl. Turns out the attacker wasn't just a threat, it was a goal powered by a fake monocore, so the moment it hit, Lean got flagged as the prime suspect and got locked up. Lean looks absolutely rattled as the king locks eyes with her and demands, "So that's exactly what happened." She can only swallow hard and nod, "Yes." The king snaps, furious that he's been left in the dark, and he grabs Gotthard and demands to know why nobody ever told him any of this was happening. Gotthard drops his head, admits he's clueless too, and snaps that if the Imperial Guard is hiding something this huge, then that's a disaster waiting too. Elmer bursts in to calm the king down, then promises, right now, that he'll dig into the soldiers involved. Elmer keeps talking, insisting Gotthard can't possibly watch every single low-ranking soldier during training. So yeah, it'd be pretty cruel to pin what happened on him. The king listens and has no choice but to swallow his pride and admit Elmer's right. Then he shoots Elmer a question, "So what do you know about this?" But Elmer just drops his gaze and admits he's got zero clue about any of it. He even shrugs it off and claims that if those military officers don't file the proper report, the info never even makes it to his desk. Suzu and Len snap instantly. They're sick of this guy pretending like he has no clue, even though he literally showed up at the dungeon. Ryuji watches the whole exchange, totally sure a guy like this wouldn't just fumble and get caught that easily. Then it hits him his crew was meant to be banished, erased from the world already, and yet the thought stays burning. The only reason they're even allowed to talk is because everything spiraled into a curveball the Prime Minister never saw coming. Ryuji knows he's got to hunt down real proof of what those guys are doing, no matter what it costs. But Elmer just stands there, chilling like it's no big deal, and Ryuji can't stop wondering, how is he still this calm? Lean and Ryuji suddenly go still, because a crushing, suffocating pressure slams into the whole room. The floor starts splitting under this insane weight, and Elmer just sits there like it's nothing, casually asking what the heck all the noise is about. Right then wham, a massive wall of rock and debris blasts inward. As the giant stone golem slams into the hall, the king and his guards freeze, completely stunned. That's when Lean finally gets it. Elmer's smugness wasn't luck. The whole time, he had a monster kept waiting right there. As panic rips through her voice and she blurts his name, Ryuji only gives a quick nod and keeps his gaze nailed to the threat. He can tell this is pure brute force, and honestly, it's just getting. It makes total sense. If you're the Prime Minister, wiping someone out is way quicker than getting dragged through endless political chess. This is the deal. If they can't make it out of this fight alive, they're done, and their chance to prove they're innocent goes up in flames. They stormed off, leaving the giant stone golem looming there, fully set to smash them all to pieces. Ryuji begins to connect the dots, right from the Prime Minister's perspective. Playing petty political chess is a total waste of time. He could just wipe everyone out and be finished with it. King George spots the danger, snatches his weapon, and shouts to Gotthard that he's charging in to help. But the Knight Commander snaps into position and blocks him cold, yelling at the king that he must stay back. No way he's getting caught in the crossfire. Ryuji steps forward and nods along with the commander, firing back to the king with all due respect. Honestly, only real adventurers, those who live for this stuff, should be the ones dealing with a crazy mess like this. He demands they back off and hands the golem over to him and his crew. Then he leans in and fires off a razor-sharp warning to the king. Watch his own back closely. Elmer just stands there and clicks his tongue, pure annoyance burning because Ryuji caught his little scheme, while the massive stone golem unleashes a thunderous roar, charging in like a wrecking ball to crush every living thing in its path. Ryuji rockets into the brawl, shouts his diamond moonstone enchantment, and unleashes a brutal barrage of rocks that, screaming for the attack to land as the stones slam the giant, detonating a brutal explosion of dust and debris. But the golem doesn't even budge, so Ryuji snaps into action and slams his Vajra release on the spot. They jammed a fuel magic stone into the move, blasting extra power into the strike to smash right through that brutal armor. He's starting to realize this golem is on a whole different level than the one from last night, and getting something this massive to drop is going to turn into a brutal problem. He tells himself he has to hold the line at any cost until the others return, and right then, he hears someone calling his name. Lean, Minori, and Suzu finally rocketed into the room, panting hard and blurting apologies for keeping him waiting way too long. Ryuji flashes a grin and glances back, convinced their timing is dead on for the move he's about to unleash. He doesn't even pause. He calls out to Minori to sprint up and join him on the front line. He bellowed for Suzu and Lean to get ready, because now the whole crew was about to team up and tear this mission down together. Ryuji blurts out that he's about to slam an enhancement spell onto Minori, so he orders the crew to hold the golem's attention for a few crucial moments. Suzu and Lean shout right back, "We've got this," and charge forward to take on that giant avalanche of rolling rocks. Suzu wastes 0 seconds. She snaps her lightning net into place and orders the electric energy to coil around the golem's massive body. As she keeps the chant roaring, she begs the god of magic to hand over just a sliver of its power. She ends it by demanding a hammer-level blast of power so they can smash that stone monster to pieces. Then boom, her non-spark web snaps alive, firing off a roaring grid that instantly knots the golem up in crackling, stinging chaos. The moment that magic clamps it down, it erupts with a deafening roar, and the whole room starts to shake like it's about to break in half. Ryuji screams over the chaos, shouting that once Minori's power-up is done, they've got to hammer the legs right away to stop it from flailing around. Minori shoots him a quick nod like, "Go," and they're ready to move the second that spell lands. Lean's fighting to keep everything together. She keeps apologizing to Suzu, but she can't shake the fear that this facade won't last much longer. Suzu plants her feet, draws a hard line, and decides she's seen everything this thing can do. Now it's time to end it. She snaps back into chanting, begging her god for one tiny glimpse of a power far beyond anything she's seen before. She screams that this is her last shot, right as a colossal mechanical hammer starts materializing above them. As Mjolnir, the legendary hammer, crashes down with a roar so brutal it rattles the whole room, and then Minori spots her opening, and she screams for Suzu and Lean to swap in, because she's got to finish this. Totally locked in, she leans in and tells the golem it's about to eat one of her moves next. She lunges in hard, using Kairi's razor-sharp skill to slam her blade straight into the stone beast's very core. She doesn't hesitate, she whips in with a massive horizontal slash, tearing clean through the golem's torso. The hit slams so hard the monster can't take it. Its body detonates into a blizzard of rock, scattering everywhere and cutting off the rest of the scene with a hard stop leaving. Gotthard and the crew stood off to the side, cheering like they finally nailed it, but deep down, he couldn't shake the thought, are they really done with him for good? Dust explodes through the air as someone screams for Lane, but he's frozen in the rubble. Ryuji lets out a pained grunt as a brutal hit lands, and he only barely shifts his body out of the strike, just in time to. She jerks the shield into place and blasts it aside. Then, in pure shock, she snaps her hand out, yelling his name as he gets. He's slammed into a colossal burst of energy and flying debris that obliterates everything and clears the room. Lane and Minori sprint straight to the crater, screaming at Ryuji if he's still breathing. And seeing him slumped on the floor, clutching his head and groaning that every single inch of him is killing him. He realizes this. If he hadn't fired off his diamond skill on pure instinct, he never would have pulled it off. But Suzu's not letting it slide. She snaps back that of course he's in pain after pulling a stunt like that. Lean darts a relieved breath, eyes still worried. She thanks him for saving him, then hits him with, "You're way too reckless." Ryuji was left with nothing to do, so he flashed a shaky smile, then apologized for the scare. Minori snaps her gaze toward the chaos, still struggling to believe what just hit her, and then blurts out, "What was that?" They nodded as they stared up at the massive crystal golem, and the moment they clocked its healing speed, their stomach dropped, because it was honestly terrifying. Ryuji clenches his focus, beads of sweat popping up as the terrifying truth hits. If they can't find a way to stop it from moving, they're left with one real move: keep weaving through those brutal blows and hunt down the opening to smash the core. Suzu blurts from the side, warning him not to shatter the magic core, leaving Ryuji utterly baffled, so he fires back. Then how are we supposed to win? She locks eyes with him and gives him a dead serious look that screams, "Don't worry, I already have a plan for this." Suzu whips around to Lean and asks, "Wait, do you have any oil mixed into all that medicinal stuff?" Lean just freezes in place, eyes blown wide, staring like, "Wait, Why on earth does anyone need oil right now? Close by, the knights stare in disbelief as their swords bite into nothing against something that huge and unbreakable, while Ryuji scrambles to figure out how to get through. Dietrich's eyes lock in as he tells the group, "For now, we're not fighting. We're buying enough time to keep the king and Lady C safe." Dietrich watches the group and realizes Ryuji's not guessing. He's got a real plan, so he snaps the knights to trust them and lock in, holding the line. Ryuji glances back and shouts, "You all ready? Because we're finally moving with the strategy," and I'm like, "Hold up, I've got." Minori shoots him a sharp, focused look and gives a quick nod like, "I'm ready, let's go." Setsi yells her agreement, eyes blazing with the same stubborn resolve to push forward, while Aline snaps to attention and locks in tight, eyes sharp as the whole team takes their spots. Ryuji barrels in and starts needling the golem, screaming it's a big oaf to keep its eyes locked on him. He skids across the floor, grinning as he tells her, "I'll keep that monster chasing me," while his adamantine skill stays on, dodging every single hit as he goes, and Suzu and Lean slip in right behind him, and the second that opening shows up, the golem's entire focus locks onto Ryuji. Suzu snaps her spark web into action, and the lightning net traps the massive crystal beast in place, cutting off every move. The minority plunges straight onto the monster's back, snapping out the words like a death sentence. It's finally time for it to get taken down. The massive crystal golem starts to buckle under the relentless pressure, and huge cracks race across its body. The moment it hits the ground, it bursts into a brutal heap, its heavy body shattering instantly, while Ryuji steps back, watching as he hurls the oil flask into the mess and yells to Suzu, "I'm out, this part is all you." Suzu steps forward and shouts for her magic to rip into the sky, forming a giant whirlwind that blasts a howling storm of wind slams through the room, drenching every shattered bit of the monster in oily slick. Gotthard spots the stones stop reforming, and Dietrich sniffs the air, asking if it's. Ryuji leans in and tells them it's not some mystery smell at all, it's oil, and he nods like he already knew the answer. Right, he lays it out. The golem's healing trick healed itself by snatching up stones nearby and patching its body back together. So he snapped into action, using Suzu's whirlwind like a laser-guided brush to blanket the whole thing in oil, and now the slick coating stops the stones from locking together, so if that monster tries to stand, it'll just keep sliding right off its footing. Ryuji stared at the wreckage, realizing the monster was almost wiped out, and the girls are absolutely blown away. Lean declares the plan pure genius, and Minori nods like, "Yeah, that's exactly what I'd expect from our genius mage," making Suzu get all smug. She just stands there, smugly chuckling, proud as anything, and then Ryuji dives right back into action. He tells Suzu the monocore is still intact and asks what they should do with it. Suzu glances at the king, and he asks if she wants him to come over. Suzu only gives a soft nod, inviting him to join them. Elmer snaps instantly, screams that it's too dangerous for the king to get that close, but the king shuts him down instantly. Elmer gets one icy stare, and the king barks for him to stay quiet for a minute. Everything goes dead silent as the king strides up to the group, clustered beside the pile of smashed stone, and Suzu kicks off her shift, then fires up her magic, pulling the core's history out of thin air as she chants, demanding the past reveal itself. In the flashback, Elmer tells someone the old core was destroyed, and the guy snaps back that next time he'll need a far stronger golem. The vision smashes into them like a wrecking ball, and the whole room freezes, every single person left utterly stunned, and Ryuji finally snaps the whole picture into place. Suzu's been pulling the strings the entire time, gripping that core like she was always one step ahead. The king snaps his attention straight to Elmer, growling, "What the hell did you just see in that vision?" But Elmer just freezes there, sweating buckets, struggling to squeeze out even one word as the king locks eyes with him and doesn't blink. Suddenly, Elmer snaps and explodes into furious yelling, claiming the whole thing is a lie, and that the girls are only putting on a fake illusion to ruin his image. He keeps reaching out, eyes wide with pure panic, begging the king not to fall for their schemes. But the king just stares at him with total disappointment and says it's downright painful to watch him carry on like this. He shuts down Elmer's excuses in seconds, because this kind of memory magic is so rock solid, it's even used as evidence in court. As the reality finally crashes down on him, Elmer drops to his knees, then goes completely silent. The king wastes 0 seconds. He snaps at his guards to drag Elmer away, then storms off to hunt down the royal alchemist who saved him. The guards immediately bark that he'll comply and drag Elmer away, as he just collapses in total defeat, slumping over, completely out of fight and up. Over the castle, the clouds finally start to thin, and that suffocating tension eases as the whole sky begins to clear. On the balcony, Setsi stands tall, tells everyone they were a huge help, and then apologizes for every bit of trouble she pulled them into. But Suzu just flashes a smile and tells her, "Don't stress, our names are finally clean now, like everything's about to be okay." Minori jumps in too, basically begging them, "Please keep backing our workshop from here on out." And it totally cracks the king up. He even swears he'll reach out for sure if anything else pops up. Setsi blurts out a reminder, and the king nods like he just heard the key detail. Then he yanks out a special document. He thrusts a sealed envelope into Ryuji's hands, then tells him it's the official game plan for rolling reconstruction support in for the port of Southstead. Ryuji stared at the letter like it finally exhaled his worries, then told the king he appreciated it more than words. But the king shuts him down and tells him to forget it, calling this little favor nothing compared to what he still owes them. King George leans in, eyes burning, and asks Setsi if she's truly on board with everything he said. She just grins, flashes a quick yes, and once the king crowns them all as heroes for saving the whole country, Lin and Suzu explode into cheers and wave like crazy, while Ryuji and Minori just stand there soaking it in, feeling damn good about it. Meanwhile, Elmer slinks through the shadows after smashing out of his cell, panicking that the guards will catch him in the castle town. So he ducks into a nearby hideout with his hood pulled tight, muttering that everything has spiraled into a full-blown disaster. Right beside him, Guy is completely going off, spitting curses at those annoying adventurers who blew everything up for them. Elmer suddenly realizes he's gotta bolt before this spirals any worse, while Guy slams the table and screams his head off, demanding where Ryuji could have vanished to. Sean steps in and tells him to come to his senses. This is the moment to finally let Ryuji go, because they still owe the guildmaster a promise to keep. But Guy just freezes, totally blindsided by the suggestion. He snaps at his crew, glaring at them and making it crystal clear. This whole disaster started because they were the ones who got caught in the first place. Then he dropped the bombshell. Turns out they didn't just lose their status, they got shoved down all the way to the 6th rank. He's freaking out so hard it's unreal. There's no way they can slam a 500 gold debt shut with the pathetic scraps these new low-rank rewards keep handing them. And to make it even worse, ever since they got demoted, Marie has been stonewalling them at every turn, and the whole situation spirals out of control. Even more tense now, then a voice rips out of the shadows, calling Guy out for being way too rattled, and Guy whips around on the spot, snarling, "Who the hell is lurking there?" The hooded figure leans in and tells him to calm down, right there, cutting through the chaos. Before he even got to say anything, he just happened to overhear them talking about a guy named Ryuji. The second the stranger speaks, Guy's hooked, so he fires off a question, "Do I know you, and what's this gonna cost?" But the guy just grins and says he doesn't want a single penny. That only makes Guy even more suspicious. He slams his hand down and demands to know the man's real play. Then the stranger drops the bombshell. He's got his own score to settle with Rugi too. A dark shadow crosses his face, and he decides, all right, he'll hear the guy out and listen to every word he's got. Dragging the hooded man toward a smirk and thinking, good, he's catching on fast to the plan. The hooded stranger crouches close, dark grin blazing, and orders Guy to end Ryuji, right there, in his place. He tilts his head down with a nasty grin, then shoots back a hard yes, "We've got to get rid of him." Meanwhile, Ryuji soaks up the calm, stretching his arms wide after finishing a fresh batch of stones. He hears his name shouted and snaps his head up, only to lock eyes with someone he instantly recognizes. Lean leans in and tells him lunch is almost ready, then fires off a request, "Go grab the others right now." Ryuji pops to his feet with a grin, tells her he's got this, then bolts outside. As soon as Lana and Lena lay eyes on him, they explode into cheers, waving like crazy and shouting, "Big brother." He strides onto the path, then leans in to the two girls and asks how everything's going. And both of them burst into cheers, yelling that everything's going perfectly as they sprint up to meet him. The sisters tell him that thanks to a Thor intro, they've got real backup now, people actually stepping in to help. Lana tells everyone that merchants and workers from the guilds have flooded in to lend a hand, and she's just as pumped, cheering that Minori and Suzu are finally jumping in, calling them a total lifesaver, while Minori just flashes that calm smile. Ryuji bursts with relief when he hears the news. He's sure the deal he struck with Marquis Leichner was every ounce of effort worth it. He swings his gaze to the crew of workers, then blurts out a heartfelt thanks to every single one before, telling the whole crew to take a breather because lunch is about to be ready. Lena bolts toward the food right away, but Lana snaps her back, "Wash your hands first." As the girls head out, Ryuji lingers for a breath, finally feeling like everything might actually be going right for once. But the tale whips back a week. Then a door swings open to this fancy room. Ryuji and Lean slump on the couch when a man finally walks in, breathless, and keeps blurting apologies for being late. The man steps up to the pair and introduces himself. "I'm Walder von Reichner," he declares. Walder kicks things off by saying the king just honored him with the rank of Marquis. Just like that, the whole introduction ignites. And Ryuji quickly cuts in, admitting he's only a third-class adventurer, plus an enchanter. While Aline steps up with a polite smile and tells them, "Oh, by the way, I'm a third-class alchemist too." Walder leans in and says, "Besides the official letter, I've heard whispers. Ryuji can make crops shoot up overnight. The local markets are apparently booming because of it, so as they head out there demands to know if there's a way to pull off the same move in the other fields around here too." Ryuji says he'd love to help, then slams the brakes, explaining that it's impossible because the special magic stones they need are next to impossible to get. Walder looks totally worn down, as he admits he's been drowning in complaints from the other farmers lately. He seriously considered slowing down, but with the market moving like this, it felt like throwing money away. Ryuji glances up and blurts that he's desperate to help. He just doesn't know what he can do. Ryuji asks if there's a way to make it work, and Lean fires back that they could rope in the right people through the Commerce and Industry Guild, people who actually know those fields, which they dive straight into building their own hard rules, all to keep the shipping load from getting unfair for anybody. Ryuji then leans in and says he's sure this plan could finally crack the money troubles the local farmers have been stuck with lately. Walder's like, "Wait, this could actually be awesome," but he slaps the brakes and says, "I've got to ask the other farmers first before we lock anything in," so he goes on to suggest. It tells them to pause that talk for now, so they can finally bulldoze straight into the most important part of the meeting. Walder leans in and tells them straight up that the one thing he's here to talk about is the harbor. And he tells me because the two of them went straight to the king and hammered it out, it finally looks like everything's starting to swing in the right direction. Walder fires off a heartfelt thank you, but Ryuji only grins and says, "Don't worry, we'll cash in too once those trade lines are back to normal." And Walder nods like, "Yeah, fair," his whole demeanor easing up as he makes it crystal clear, getting everything moving again is a massive deal, especially for folks like enchanters and alchemists who live and die by the results. Lean sits there sipping tea like she's totally fine, but then she snaps the vibe. This is life or death for them, because if they don't get people buying her potions and magic stones ASAP, they're cooked, and what? And Walder tells them, straight up, that the current schedule says the whole restoration will be finished in just 3 months. Lean asks if they can kick off overseas trading once the port is fixed, but Walder snaps back that he can't say for sure yet even though he's dead sure that if the king keeps leading the charge on the harbor project, everything will explode forward at full speed. He practically smirks as he tells them, stone cold certain it'll rise again and reclaim the top port in the whole southwest. The sun blazes above the quiet workshop roof as the long day finally grinds to a close. Ryuji's mind races back to everything they've survived, from that very first request from Lady Cease, then wonders just how far they've come, which erupted into the brutal duel he had to survive in Beckhammer. From there, everything snowballed fast, until they were right in the thick of the royal capital's total chaos. And now it all crashes into place. This deal with Walder finally lands, and he realizes how wildly everything's shifted lately. Ryuji's last couple of weeks have been pure chaos, but over the past 2 weeks he finally caught his breath, falling into a routine as he took on a whole stack of requests from the Commerce and Industry Guild. And it's paying off big time. He's been grinding out magic stones nonstop, while Lean keeps her eyes locked on her medicine. Ryuji stares down at his work with a massive grin, soaking in the feeling that he's finally living the exact life he's always dreamed of, like it's really happening to him. Meanwhile, Minori and Suzu are out there grinding through one commission after another, staying slammed with work and not stopping for a second. And Ryuji even squeezes in time to help Lana and Lena with their fields, smoothly slotting himself right into the community. Once they get that port fixed and trade starts flowing again, he can't stop imagining how smooth everything will finally be. Honestly, he'd love to just coast in this quiet, chill life forever. But then whoosh, a strange noise snaps his attention, and he halts mid-step, stunned, desperate to figure out what's happening. He spots Lean nearby and blurts out that he's been hearing that exact same sound. Lately, it's been happening a lot, so he marches over and demands to know what she's really been doing back here. Lean swivels around, lets out a shy little grin, and admits she's been quietly training in combat on her own. Ryuji's eyes go wide and his jaw drops as he blurts out, "Combat training again. like he still can't believe he's saying it. He jabs his finger at the weird weapon in her hand and demands, "So that's really a gun?" Lean nods and explains that it's a special alchemical version. She slams back through every wild thing they've survived, like the goblin hero and the colossal golem they tore down in the capital, and she leans in and tells Ryuji that he's already done everything she needed lately. She just wants to find a way to be useful to him too. Right as things start to crack, Suzu and Minori suddenly burst in, Suzu frantically waving her hand and shouting at Lean to come over, and then she fires up the group, reminding them they all swore to go grab supplies today, and asks if they're really going to keep stalling or finally move. Lean blurts out that she almost forgot, rushes off to get her things ready, and Ryuji decides he's coming too for the trip. Lena tilted her head up and asked, "So you're really coming with me this time?" And Ryuji tells her he's got to restock his supplies anyway, then leans in and asks how things are going over at the fields. Lana tells them the Commerce and Industry Guild tossed in extra help at last, so now they finally have enough hands to crush the workload. An older woman looks at Lena and praises her, saying they've both been crushing it lately. Minori cracks her arm in a quick flex and admits she gets painfully restless the second she stops moving, and Susu nods right along, warning that even a mage's body can feel downright lifeless when the activity runs dry. They stare at the stash of flowers they've gathered, and someone nods and says, "This is more than enough for what we need." Ryuji swings back to the group and asks, "What else are we missing? Anything we still need to find?" Lean suddenly realizes their salt supply is almost gone, so she pushes the idea, "Stop at the salt lake and grab brine before we head back." But out of nowhere, the air suddenly turns thick, and this dark, creepy dread slams down on the whole crew. Everyone snaps into wide-eyed panic, totally blindsided by that sudden shift in the air. Lean S left utterly stunned, while Minority snaps her gaze and admits she's just gotten a horrible, gut-wrenching feeling about whatever the heck that was. Ryuji freezes on the spot, stunned by that weird feeling, and then a restless heat starts churning deep in his chest. Suzu shouts his name and yanks him back to the real world, and the look on his face screams that everything just hit way too hard. She tells him the air feels wrong, says they need to sprint back home right now. Ryuji locks eyes with her and nods hard, because the truth hits, and he realizes she's completely right about everything. Lean snaps that everyone needs to hurry. She's got a bad feeling too, so the whole squad breaks into a full-on sprint through the trees. They finally stumble back, then freeze in their tracks, utterly stunned by what they're staring at. People are sprawled across the ground like they got absolutely wrecked, and no one's standing up straight. Ryuji stares at the wreckage and yells, "What the heck happened here?" And Suzu points straight at the field like, "Go check this out." It's a mud golem, except someone smashed it into a scattered mess of broken rocks and dirt, turning it into a total wreck. Ryuji insisted that, yeah, these things are normally fragile, but with his enchantments locked in, it never should have shattered so easily. Lean rockets over to one of the guys sprawled on the ground, barking, "You good? Where'd you get hurt?" He shoots her a look, blurts out an apology for what went down, insists he's mostly okay, then stops mid-sentence, like something else is about to hit. But then he slams down the worst news. Lana and Lena have been kidnapped, and Lean's face instantly turns ghost white as Suzu rushes in and blurts out, "Who did this?" But the guy just shakes his head and mumbles that he has no clue. He breaks it down. 3 adventurers just appeared out of nowhere and immediately burst into a fight. He drops his gaze in shame, admitting, "We did everything we could to protect the girls, but we never stood a chance against them." And Ryuji just stands there, stuck thinking about those 3 adventurers, until a voice suddenly yells that they've found something. Another guy strides up, hands out a paper to Ryuji, and says a big dude sent him to deliver it. Suzu snatches one glance at the note and instantly recognizes the handwriting, because she knows that hand, Ray. When Ryuji clutches the paper so tight his knuckles go white, he knows this is exactly the person he pictured. Ryuji is absolutely livid. He's standing there glaring like a storm, and with a terrifying stare he mutters that guy's name. The crew barrels straight into the old building's ruins, closing ranks as they push toward the exact spot where he's just posted up there playing it cool, and the second they show up, he looks them dead in the face with a smug grin, then laughs, saying he's shocked they actually came. He straight up says he's got no idea how they zeroed in on this exact spot, but Ryuji doesn't even care. He cuts the small talk cold, glares at Guy, and snarls that he wants Lana and Lena back, then demands to know where he's hiding them. Guy insists they're right there, and then boom, Marie slips in behind the 2 sisters, telling Ryuji to breathe easy because everyone's safe. Lena shoots a look at Ryuji through tears and blurts out his name, while her sister just stands there, frozen. There he snaps completely, just scoffing at the whole scene as he tells Marie she's done nothing but get in the way ever since they showed up. He stares at the bruises on her face and snaps whether she's been beaten enough, but Marie does. She snaps back, he's just a little kid. There's no way I can stand by and watch this happen. Lean glances at Marie, and you can tell, worry is eating at him because he has no idea how this is going to turn out. Meanwhile, Guy only scoffs, claiming he's been acting like this the entire time. Ryuji locks eyes with Marie and Sean, and the truth hits hard. They're not helping this time, and they might as well be useless. He can't shake the feeling. He never truly trusted Guy from the start, and that thought just keeps screaming at him. But it's still wild how fast he broke that promise. Ryuji presses him for the truth, asking what he's really chasing and whether it's all just about the money. The guy stared into space and just kept chanting, "Money," over and over like he couldn't hear anything else. A creepy grin crawls across his face, and he bursts into a laugh all on his own. Then he suddenly snaps like it all clicks, bursting into shouts because he finally solves the puzzle. He slaps on this creepy mask, bursts out loud that he owed Marie money, and admits he completely forgot all about it until right now. Ryuji just freezes, staring at him in total shock at how badly this guy has fallen apart. Marie gets completely blindsided when Guy suddenly snaps, yells at him to wait, and demands to know what he's forgotten. He doesn't mince words, straight up tells her that if he didn't owe her money, he'd have vanished on her a long time ago. Ryuji just stares at the full meltdown, stunned as he realizes Guy has completely lost his mind in real time. And he lanes in hard, demanding the truth. Why kidnap those two in the first place if money wasn't the real motive? A guy just lurks in the shadows, flashes a creepy grin, plays it like it's no big deal, and his mask rips clean off, and the moment everything goes haywire, chaos explodes like a punch to the gut. A colossal explosion tears through the area, and as the blast slams into both of them, their screams cut through the chaos as they're caught in the blast's path, sending them reeling with pain as the dust finally settles over the wreckage. Ryuji quickly scans Lun to make sure she's okay, and she tells him she's doing all right, mostly. Both of them try to steady their nerves, but the blast from that attack leaves them spinning, completely rattled. The smoke finally parts. Minori and Suzu are in a dark figure's grip. Ryuji's voice rips through the air as he screams their names, seeing them right there, and the guy snaps out of his act, flashes a twisted grin, and admits his whole plan was never about anything else. He just wanted to drag the entire group out. He starts ranting that everyone bullied him for years, calling him a fool, while he clamps down on Minori's neck. So, he shifts his focus to Suzu, swearing he'll unleash his power and finally break them both until they're left with no choice but submission. Ryuji snaps, surges forward, cussing under his breath, and demands the guy release both girls, right now. Right then, a magic fuel stone detonates and blasts a blinding wall of light, shoving everyone back in one instant. Lean came charging over to make sure the girls were okay. Minori kept hacking and coughing, and Suzu said, trembling, that they were hanging on by a thread. Ryuji touches the guy and instantly knows something's off. His armor doesn't feel like armor at all. It's just bare skin and Guy just shrugs it off, laughing in Ryuji's face like, seriously, you think a stunt like that could actually work on me? Ryuji freezes in pure shock, staring at the enemy, and then it hits him, the horrifying form he's become. Ryuji just stares in pure disbelief, because Guy has somehow turned himself into a chimera, Guy right in front of him. A guy flashes him this twisted, creepy stare and flat out confirms he's right, and as Ryuji warns him there's no way back, the trap snaps shut. Ryuji's face crumples with disappointment as he tells the guy, I always knew you were an idiot, and then. But he never saw it coming. Someone would toss their humanity aside just to chase a power boost. The guy shrugs off the whole thing, flashes a smug smirk and taunts Ryuji, like, are you bitter only because you're getting absolutely demolished? Minority rockets back into the chaos, challenging the thought that she could ever be overwhelmed as she charges straight in. She screams that getting caught was just a cheap shot last time. Now she's done playing around, and she's deadly serious. She shouts the name of her special move and drives her blade down with full force, only to fall short, but not by much. But then her eyes blow wide. Her sword never even left a scratch on him. Guy just stands there like it's no big deal and tells her the attack did nothing at all, trapping her completely. Guy blasts them with a brutal shockwave, and Minori and Suzu get launched flying backward like they've been punched by the air itself. They slam down hard and Minori clutches her head, firing off Suzu, are you okay? While apologizing nonstop for the chaos. Suzu's totally out of it. She's convinced she might have died, while everyone else is just relieved she's still breathing. The guy looms over them like a living shadow, sneering that they've still got enough energy to keep yapping. He chuckles and quips that their noise sounds like a last will and testament, especially because he's already got dying on the schedule. Ryuji snaps he won't accept it, yelling that Guy can't get away with this, and then he snaps into a desperate charge, unleashing the power of the Fura magic stone to slam down and end it all. But Guy snatches the punch out of the air with one hand, and Ryuji's jaw drops, because somehow that powered-up hit gets shut down so effortlessly. Ryuji realizes this power isn't human at all, while Guy just grins like the sight alone is pure joy. He lines in and tells him straight, Ryuji's power doesn't even come close to his anymore. Minori is completely frozen. She's supposed to be this genius swordsman, but Suzu's face drops, exhausted to the bone, as the truth finally lands. Even a genius mage can't stop this guy. The guy laughs in Ryuji's face, trashing his whole setup, calling his special enchantment magic and those stones a total joke. And he fires off the truth. Ryuji's just coasting on his big brother's power, right here, right in this exact moment. Guy doesn't beat around the bush. He tells him straight to his face that he's inferior, then asks if the washed-up trash finally gets just how badly he's outmatched. He kicks off the torture by smashing Ryuji's fist, and Ryuji collapses into a raw, soul-crushing groan, right as he swears that the left leg Ryuji used to kick him earlier is next on the list. With a twisted glint in his eye, Guy tells Ryuji that once his limbs are mangled and he can't even move, things are about to get brutally nasty. He plans to butcher Minori and Suzu on the spot, while Ryuji is left trapped, forced to watch them die right in front of him. Ryuji can only choke out a cry, his face contorting with terror as he realizes what Guy is planning to do to his sisters. Suzu and Lin stare in disbelief as the scene explodes in front of them, and both of them snap a gasp, right as they're about to start begging for answers. And Guy throws every ounce of strength into crushing Ryuji's hand, and Ryuji clenches his teeth through the pain. Lin finally lunges forward, raises her glowing weapon, and aims it straight at Guy, shouting at him to let go of Ryuji right now, but Marie is totally panicked. She grabs Lin's attention and blurts out, "What do you think you're doing? There's no way you can win this fight." Lin doesn't flinch, she fires back, sure of her edge, with that fierce, unshakable look like she's got this even while she's outmatched. She reminds Marie, "I knew the risks too," and somehow keeps smiling even as everything starts to look hopeless and makes it clear that Marie only pushed back against Guy in the first place, because she was protecting both of them. That's when Guy finally spots her, jerks his head around with that totally wrecked, terrifying stare, and snaps that they're all insects for hiding out there. Marie flips out and screams at Lin to sprint like her life depends on it, but it's already too late because some guy flashes that creepy grin and shrugs like it's no big deal. Then he practically beams, thrilled at the thought of grabbing yet another victim. Guy glares at Lin with a twisted, terrifying grin, then spits that if she's really so ready to die, he'll cut her down first. He summons the bottom of the barrel, lunges straight ahead, and his hand lights up like a weapon. He's about to end it all right there. But Lin just freezes in place, eyes wide with pure shock, unable to move as she watches him start to change. His face starts to melt and glitch like a corrupted video game. He scrambles to say Mage and kill, but his voice crumbles mid-sentence. Suzu and Minori huddle on the sidelines, and while Suzu looks totally lost, Minori can feel it. Something is seriously wrong with him. Right nearby, Marie yanks the two little girls into her arms to shield them, and when one of them whispers that she's terrified, Marie steadies her own breath and promises them, everything's going to be okay. Sean stood frozen, staring at his leader like he'd just witnessed something impossible, because the guy in front of him didn't look human anymore. Ruggy glares with a bruised face, locked onto the disaster, and can't stop thinking, what the hell is happening to Guy? His body liquefies into a brutal storm of black energy, warped shapes tearing through the air, and he keeps babbling about tomorrow and anomalies, but it's nothing but twisted, garbled nonsense. He fled the scene, and the whole room froze, everyone gawking at one warped eye swallowed by the dark as the voice demanded, "So what the heck is happening?" Sean watches their leader crumble, and he screams that the guy has totally lost it, seeing his friend turn into that absolute mess. Ryuji spots Sean charging straight into danger, blurts a full-throttle warning, and yells for him to back off, because whatever that thing is, it's not safe. Black energy keeps crawling outward, and Sean just stands there, trembling, unable to even register what he's seeing. He's blurting out, "What the hell is happening?" While right as Guy's old self returns, it unleashes this disgusting, glitch-splattered scream. Then his human side vanishes completely. Marie snatches the two girls and yells at them to run, right now. Lana freezes for a split second, fear pinning her in place. So Marie steps straight into their faces and blasts, "Get moving," her eyes blazing like she's not leaving until the fight is won. Lana finally snaps back and snatches Lena's hand, Both of them agree to break free, start backing away from the brawl, but then Lean snaps to a halt when she hears her name and whips around to look back. She's torn up, like she can't decide whether to flee this nightmare or drag everyone with her. Marie shoots Lena a tiny, heartbreak smile and begs her to take care of the two little girls. Like whatever hits next, Lena's got this. Lean grabs the kids tight and shouts for Marie, begging for her name to bring them back. She doesn't want to leave, but she forces herself to get everyone to safety. Guy unleashes one last human scream as black energy tears through him. Lean can barely look, frozen there as she screams for Marie as tears blast down her face, yanking the kids out of the nightmare like she can't let them stay. Minori's completely frozen, like her body forgot how to move, while Ryuji and Suzu just stare as the whole transformation goes down, and it's getting terrifying, like really bad. And everyone stares as Guy's magic core turns bright red, screams past the limit, and goes full berserk right in front of their faces. Suzu snaps at the crew that the black smoke is pure poison, tells everyone to back up. Anyone who breathes in that core energy gets wiped out instantly. Then the corruption races through them like wildfire. Guy's voice suddenly flips into something unrecognizable as he announces he's turning into a chimera, and then his body starts tearing apart right in front of everyone. Minori freezes in total shock, stammering out her old friend's name over and over, while she watches him get swallowed up by that thing. Two little girls nearby are sobbing and begging Lean to tell them where their sister went, terrified by what happened to her. But Lean forces a brave smile and tells them, "We're gonna be fine." Then she swears they'll rescue their sister, no matter what it costs. Lean snaps her full attention onto Ryuji, blurts his name, and makes it crystal clear. They have one shot, destroy the core before. Things can't get any worse. She snaps that the fusion is still fresh, and if they move right now, they've got a real shot to pull this off in time, before and then the words cut off. And Ryuji whips his gaze back to her, fully locked in no doubt, no hesitation. He tells her she's right, there's zero time left, so go. So Lean into the signals. Minori and Suzu flash them to call for backup. Minori snaps her blade out with a sharp nod, while Suzu raises her staff and gets ready both of. They surge forward to help, and Lean kicks off the chant, summoning the spirits of the earth to twist the ground and snag that monster mid-step. At the same time, Suzu starts her own prayer to the god of magic, begging for the strength to weave a mistletoe trap that can bind the beast, and the monster won't budge. Those dual spells land dead on. A mud snare clamps its legs, heavy branches cinch its body, and it's trapped tight, unable to move, and the creature thrashes in place, and all it can manage is a crushed, pained grunt, while the magical vines clamp down and refuse to let it go. Seeing her chance, Minori rockets upward with a scream, then pours her entire soul into a razor-sharp strike meant to punch straight through its defense. And the blade crashes in with a brutal thud. Minori gasps in a sharp burst of pain and drives through the strike, refusing to let up on the monster. She keeps her sword up and screams, "Everyone, watch out," because that monster is still charging forward. And Ryuji pushes for an update, and Lean tells him it's fast, it's brutal, but the wounds snapped shut instantly, so its regeneration's solid too, and that's when Ryuji snapped to the truth. This was just like that golem fight back then, and he warns them, even if we stop it from moving, breaking the core won't be easy. But Lean's got a plan. She whips out a revolver and swears she'll blast it from a distance, telling the whole crew to line up their shots straight for the magic core. Then she whips around to Ryuji and orders him to enchant her alchemy gun. Ryuji meets her stare, dead in the eye. He goes deadly quiet for a beat, then snaps out her name, like he's locking in for the fight. He shoots her a serious stare and promises, "I've got this," then grits his teeth as he readies his magic. Every last member bursts into motion. Boom, a gigantic magic circle snaps into place as they unleash a synchronized, combined assault while Suzu launches into her own chant, shouting for the god of magic to lend her a slice of its power, so she can finally tap into the strength she needs to swing that magic hammer and smash that monster into nothing. Minori roared out Guy's name, begging him to freeze, then screaming for him to stop moving. Suzu slams down her massive Mjolnir hammer spell. One colossal bolt of thunder energy detonates, cracking into. As the monster snarls through agony, it can't dodge the crushing magic attack's full force as the impact keeps. Ryuji watches in disbelief as Guy turns into a monster and still refuses to bend, just as stubborn as ever. Suzu checks on Minori, asks if she's okay, and Minori insists she's still got the strength to push forward, so she tells Suzu, just buy enough time for the other two to finish getting ready, and Suzu nods, agreeing. Ryuji kicks off his enchantment, demanding a power that can punch through anything, and it's about to burst. Lean lifts the gun, stares down at the magic circle, and thinks back to the last thing she was warned about something. It's horrible, but she knows Marie wasn't always like this, because she can still remember when Marie threw her whole heart into being a priestess, soaking up every moment and driving herself toward her biggest dreams. Lean whips her gaze back to the very beginning and realizes it was Angela who first reached out and invited her. When they finally formed the party, Marie met her and everything changed. Back then, she wasn't like this, because as a priestess she swore she just wanted to help people. She told Lean that with her alchemy and potion-making talent, they could reach out and save a whole mountain of lives. That was the exact moment Marie stepped up and officially asked her to join. Lean couldn't ever forget that kindness. She realizes that even though everything between them is a wreck right now, Marie is still a friend she can't afford to lose. Ryuji stands there staring at the dirt, replaying his past, and realizing with a jolt that it's not as different as he thought. He admits just picturing Guy and the others ignites his rage all over again, but that's only the spark, not the whole story. They stuck together for what felt like forever, and he swore that no matter what, he'd never let them turn into monsters or fall into a darkness like that. That's it. Now he's made up his mind to finish it, because he's found a reason to fight that hits deeper than just revenge. Lean drops her gaze, her eyes dark with focus, and gives a quiet nod, already readying herself for whatever comes next. Lean stands frozen with her weapon up, staring Ryuji down as she hammers home the truth. She has to save them, no matter what, because the final battle is here. She whips her mind back to the moment everything spiraled, remembering how Marie suddenly lost it and became obsessed with money. It got so bad that Marie chucked her pride as a priestess and buried her adventurer dreams just to chase gold. But Lean still looks at her like a friend. Ryuji catches Guy's smug grin in his head. Yeah, he's always been a jerk, but somehow this whole mess still twists up his feelings in the most complicated way. He keeps replaying how Lean dragged him into this mess, and he can't stand the fact that none of them were supposed to get hurt this badly. Ryuji suddenly gets it. That's the real reason they're here right now, and Lean nods along quietly as they lock in together. They both know they've got to help their old friends, even as those creepy glowing eyes stare at them from the dark like they're hunting. Deep inside, Minori and Suzu get absolutely hammered by a giant shadow monster, and it's so fast they can barely keep up. The creature screams like it's ripping the world apart, then surges forward and hurls Minori through the air as if she weighs nothing. Minori finally makes it down, blurts out to Suzu right away, and together they scramble to get ready, because they're going for one last stand. The monster gets trapped in a colossal spark web, an exploding net of electricity that zaps and pins it in place while the beast screams in agony, and Minority gets slammed by the energy's backlash. His screams cut off as the surges smash in from every side. She clenches her teeth and drives forward, shouting for Bale to cut straight through the enemy, and Suzu gets shocked by the raw power on display. It snarls one last pain grunt as a massive shockwave tears straight through its chest. But it's not over. Minori's jaw drops as she realizes it's already fighting back, healing itself, regenerating again after she can't even finish the thought. Bruised and battered, Suzu steps forward with razor-sharp focus, staring the beast down and swearing it won't get the chance to recover. She lifts her staff to the sky and shouts at the god of magic, begging for just a sliver of power to be granted to her. Suzu snaps out of her prayer and begs for the one mistletoe spell that can finally wipe this monster out. Then she hurls the mistletoe magic forward, and black spikes slam into the creature's body, leaving it completely stunned as the holy light explodes through the dark room. And right when Ryuji and Lean finally look like they might make it, Ryuji thrusts his hand forward and tells Lean, "This is the moment. Now." Lean fixes his gaze ahead, snaps out to Marie and tells her, "I'm saving you right now." It's a massive explosion of raw energy, boom, filling the entire area the second the attack lands, and the bullet rockets straight at the target, and Lean's mind flashes back. Ryuji somehow imbued the shot with deadly sharpness, and she knows this gun is the reason she finally finds a way to punch through the enemy's shell. Boom. The hit lands like a thunderclap, right as even the monster screams an earth-shaking roar as its core gets slammed and blasted straight in the middle of its chest. Minority stares at the explosion, then blurts that he really did it, grinning with relief because they finally nailed the hit. But Suzu's face turns ghost white as she stares at the smoke. She can't wrap her head around it and blurts out, "Wait, is this actually happening?" The core starts moving and Suzu snaps to it. This monster is already fighting to regenerate its monocore, right there in front of them, which slams a wave of panic into Lane. She blurts out Ryuji's name as a blinding light ignites, and the beast's face bursts out of the darkness, growling like it's daring the whole world. This isn't over. Ryuji barrels in with everything he's got, shouting that the monster's nightmare is finally over. He lunges straight into its face and snarls that it won't get a single second to regenerate. He knew Lean's shot would tear open a path for him, so he bolted forward and snatched the win before anyone could stop him. He rammed Cancer's magic stone straight into the beast, and lightning exploded everywhere as sparks flew. Ryuji zeroes in on the whole Lean around the core, dead sure that if he nails that exact spot, he's done. The whole monster just unravels, right as it starts breaking apart into swirling light and smoke. As Marie finally snaps her eyes open, she's sprawled on the ground, totally out of it, but Lean spots her, eyes welling up, and blurts out that she's really awake. Lean yanks her clothes into place and blurts out how relieved she is that she's finally okay. And only Marie tilts her head up at her, whispers Lane's name, and you can see it click. She knows she's been saved. Lean shoots a worried glance at Marie and asks, right there, if her body's really holding up after everything that just went down. Marie's drenched in sweat and barely standing, yet she forces a weak smile and tells him she's doing fine. Lean snaps her focus to Ryuji, slumped over like he's been wrecked, and tells him he looks even worse off than Marie. Ryuji blurts out that what they're seeing isn't magic at all. It's the Ansvar stone's brutal recoil exploding through everything. That was one of the top-tier magic stones he could hand someone, capable of crushing in a massive physical boost. But yeah, it definitely leaves a mark. He forces a weird smile, admits the pain is so brutal he can't even move, and it stings just to speak. Leaning in with a hard, serious stare, Lane snaps to Marie that there's one crucial thing she absolutely has to know. She demands to know where that synthetic magic core really came from, replaying how completely unhinged Walther looked with it in his hands. Marie stares down and blurts out Loudinger, saying he swore the stone was handed to him by a guy who's got a bone-deep grudge against their whole group. Suzu starts spiraling about who it could be, even guessing the Prime Minister. Then it hits her that that guy should have been arrested ages ago. Marie clicks into place and realizes the guy they're talking about is the same one Suzu mentioned. Then Suzu drops the bomb that he just busted out of prison not long ago, and she still remembers the moment the guards stormed in and hauled Walder off right after they wrapped up their conversation, like the whole group is stuck in that stunned silence. Marie steals a glance at the elf sisters, smiles gently, and tells them she's truly sorry they had to face something that terrifying because of everything that happened. Then she stops, right before the next part. But Lana just shakes her head and fires back. No, it's nothing like that. She pours out a huge thank you for keeping them safe from that guy, and Lena jumps in with a bright, big smile to thank her right back. Marie doesn't say another word. She sweeps both girls into a tight, warm hug. 2 months slam shut, and the story rips to a massive, loud, bustling port city where massive trade ships are slammed into the harbor right in the middle of town, like they own the place. Suzu's loving every second of this vibe. She shouts to Ryuji that she's gotta get her hands on some grilled squid from one of those stalls. Lena's buzzing with excitement. She shouts at Minori because she spotted fresh herring for sale just a bit farther down the road. Lena leans in and asks Suzu what she's gonna eat, and Suzu grins. Grilled fish, she says. It's fatty, juicy, and it's perfect because it's in season right now. Ryuji watches everyone scatter through the market, sprinting and weaving like they're on fire, and he can't help wondering why the whole place feels so violently restless. He clocks that Minori's somehow the most hyper out of all of them. Lean strolls right beside him with a bright grin, asking if it's not awesome to see everything so alive, and then she tells him this festival is all for the reconstruction, so he better stop overthinking and just soak it all in. She basically blurts out that she's just over the moon, the harbor repairs wrapped up way ahead of schedule. Ryuji fully nods along as they lean together and stare out at the ships. He starts replaying everything with Guy in his head, remembering Marie's promise that she'd whip those 3 back into shape. Ryuji thinks if Marie truly changed for the better, then we can totally trust her to take the wheel and handle this. He finally feels like they've snagged some real peace, so he takes Lean's advice and dives into the festival like it's the best day of his life. Right then Thor spots him in the crowd, snaps his arm up, and waves hard, yelling for his attention. One of the locals barrels up to Ryuji, grabbing his attention just to thank him for the magic stones from the other day, saying the whole job suddenly got way easier because of them. Ryuji just smirks like it's nothing, tells him to keep showing up for their workshop, and the guy practically beams as he agrees. One more woman waves Lean over, making it crystal clear that she's appreciated too, catching Lean completely off guard as the woman pours out her gratitude for the medicine, she tells her husband is finally healed, and he's over the moon because his back pain is gone for good. Lane can't stop the giggle as she tells the lady she's just over the moon that the medicine worked so perfectly. Suddenly, some dude shoves a huge hunk of meat into Ryuji's arms like a thank you gift, and Ryuji just stands there, totally thrown off. While someone else hurls a giant striped fish to Len, they bark that she's got to grab some of their stuff and take it home too. Suddenly, a massive crowd of locals barrels in around them, shoving gifts and roaring thanks, so fast that Ryuji can barely even register what's landing in his hands. Suzu and Minori stare from the side in total disbelief, watching their friends get swamped, literally, under a mountain of food the townspeople shove on them. Right there in the street, the whole crew stands shoulder to shoulder, and in that moment it hits them hard. This town isn't just where they are anymore, it's where they've mattered all along. Right in the middle of town, the group is just hanging around when a voice snaps from behind them, saying they look like they're having the time of their lives. And there he is, Walder von Reichner, grinning as he steps in, claiming the whole city's energy is there because of their hard work. He also shoots the elf sisters a glance, proudly noting how their fields have been killing it lately. Walder leans in and declares the entire market is booming because of them, then makes it crystal clear he's betting everything that everyone keeps smashing it. Lana answers politely, but little Lena lights up with that huge, beaming smile. Then Walder whips his attention back to Ryuji and Lane, sharp tone rising as he speaks straight to both of them. He leans in and tells them, once this festival finally wraps up, come to my manor for a visit, and that's where he leaves the. Curiosity hits them hard as he swears they'll get a glimpse of something truly awesome there. Then, before long, they step right up to the massive estate. As they step inside, Setsu is already waiting, fully dressed in her royal outfit, smiling wide as she greets them like it's destiny and says, "It's so good to see you again." Lane and Ryuji just freeze on the spot. Then Ryuji finally squeezes out a shaky stammer. She's the princess. Setsi the princess laughs and tells everyone to just call her Setsi, like it's no big deal, while Ryuji can barely choke out even her name. Setsi only smiles and nods, and Lene just stands there, frozen in total silence. Setsi stares toward the estate and blurts out that she didn't come all this way for nothing. She raced into town to check the harbor, but she realized that this city is packed with top-notch food and fresh produce flowing in everywhere, like it never runs out. She looks completely thrilled as she gushes about how amazing it feels to see everyone here so healthy. Turning back to the group, Setsi declares that the city's good vibes are probably the direct result of their hard work, and Ryuji gets a little bashful, rubs the back of his head, and admits that, yeah, they've definitely been helping out. Ryuji wastes zero time. He tells Lady Setsi point blank that he's totally out of magic stones, so he can't pull off the same move as last time. Setsi's eyes widen, and he sighs, saying it's a total tragedy he can't run that performance back again. So Ryuji clocks her crushed face and immediately realizes she was waiting for him to admit he'd run out of supplies. He tells her it's somehow perfect, because even without the stones, Lene can still brew a potion that'll supercharge the soil quality. Ryuji tells them the plan's solid, but they'll still have to tweak it once they see the soil and the environment. So since the medicine is already crushing it in Southstead, he can step up personally and swear the cure actually works. Setsi leans in, listens, and goes, "I get it." She admits it's a badass idea, but then she pinpoints the real problem she can't ignore because she can't stop asking herself, could anyone really brew enough medicine to blanket every last field across the entire kingdom? Ryuji shoots her a confident grin and tells her he already planned for that exact problem. Then he yanks out a document packed with the whole recipe and potion instructions, every bit Lene wrote, while Lene, right behind him, starts losing her mind. Lene gets totally blindsided, panicking as he fires off, "Ryuji, why are you even carrying that around?" Ryuji leans in and reminds her they already talked about selling recipes to keep the shop alive, and then he drops, "I knew something like this would hit." Lene looks completely frazzled and tells him, "Even if we talk it through, I still need a minute to get my head straight." Ryuji tells her she has nothing to fear after saving the king, then leans in and asks if she's really just doubting her own work to get under his skin. Lene snaps back, "Those are two totally different things," she says, swatting away the idea, insisting she'd never hand Ryuji something she wasn't confident about, and daring him to see firsthand just how brutally effective her work really is. She reminds him that if she hadn't provided her medicine, Ansvar's backlash would have kept chewing on him for way longer. Setsi jumps in to back him up, praising the medicine Lene makes as truly wonderful, and that praise knocks Lene completely off guard. Ryuji stares at Lene and tells her straight up that he fell for her work from day one, back when he was just a craftsman, and he declares that from this day on, they're joining forces at Altena, turning their strengths into a punch that echoes worldwide. The two of them, an enchanter and an alchemist, team up to craft miracles that can light up the future for as many people as they can reach. Ryuji asks her, "Doesn't that sound incredible?" And Lean just freezes, soaking it all in like it's hitting her for the first time. As Tsetsi snaps back into the conversation, he brags that the castle has the best facilities and the top-tier court alchemists on standby. She's dead sure that if she blends those resources with Lean's recipes, they'll ignite a full-blown agricultural revolution across the whole country, and Lean's. Then she finally breaks into a tiny smile, admitting, "Yeah, I guess she's right." Lean snaps her head up, totally thrown off when someone blurts her name out of nowhere. It's Setsi flashes her a warm smile and asks if she's ready to sit down and spill every last detail. Lean doesn't even blink. She bows hard and blurts out that she'd love to do it, while everyone else just stands there and stares. That night, the moon blazed over the city, and Ryuji with the girls strode across the main square. Ryuji tilts his head to the sky, soaking up the calm for one breath, while the rest of the group crowds in right behind him. A ton has changed since then, like the burn mine finally kicking back into gear and starting to work again. And now that the harbor's finally back in one piece and those magic stones are rolling again, it's like the whole world just shoved the wind right at their backs. Once word about the soil improvement potion hits the whole kingdom, everything's about to explode into motion. Ryuji can already feel the brutal trials ahead, but with Altena by his side, he's convinced they'll power through anything. Watching him, Minori can't help it. She blurts out that for once her big brother actually looks like he's enjoying himself. Ryuji whips his gaze back to Suzu and blurts that even just picturing the future makes his heart hammer like crazy. Then he shoots a wink and a thumbs up and basically says, "Craftsmen are happiest when they get to make whatever they want." The girls soak it in, Minori's grinning like she's about to explode with excitement, while Suzu and Lean just beam at him with this warm, steady smile. Beneath the moonlight, Ryuji leans in and tells them, when they finally get a little free time, they've got to help him track down materials, and Minori fully backs him up, promising him, while Suzu steps in and tells him to hand it all over to her. Ryuji stops for a beat, his voice turning sharper, and then he drops the bomb. There's one more thing. Now that the workshop is finally running for real, he can't stop thinking, should they put up a sign to let everyone know where it is? Minori's eyes light up, and she shoots her hand in the air, yelling that she should be the one to draw the pictures, but Suzu shuts it down in a heartbeat, snapping that Minori's art looks like it could summon an evil god, so yeah, it's a hard no. Lean's face tightens the moment she hears that. She grabs Suzu's attention and demands to know what kind of drawings Minori is really making.